Amazing listeners. Mira here, sprinkling a little extra sunshine on your day, even if it's pouring rain outside. You know, between our last chat and this one, I had a truly only in my life kind of morning. I was so excited to get here, I practically skipped out the door, only to find my building's elevator decided to play hide and seek. It just wasn't there. So, I had to carry my gigantic podcast bag, which feels like it's filled with bricks and a small elephant, by the time I hit the ground floor. I was less speaking of positive energy and more.
Mira, only you could turn a mini marathon down 6 flights of stairs into a comedy routine. Human waterfall, I'm going to steal that one for my next stand-up. I can just picture you, drenched, looking like you fought a washing machine and lost, all while smiling. I can just picture you, drenched. My morning was less dramatic, thankfully. I just tried to make coffee, but instead of coffee, I somehow brewed a cup of existential dread. Oops. I mean, it was dark, bitter, and made me question all my life choices.
Oh, come on, Leo. You and your coffee-fueled philosophies. You're lucky you didn't accidentally try to perform a stand-up routine to the pigeons after your elevator adventure. But speaking of adventures and unexpected turns, today we're embarking on a journey that will answer all your burning questions about two countries that are truly worlds apart, yet incredibly fascinating in their own ways. Have you ever wondered about the vibrant traditions of Bangladesh? Or perhaps the mystical allure of Guatemala? Ooh.
Wait, I want to add something there. You know, for anyone out there who's been staring at a world map, pointing vaguely and thinking which one of these places should I pack my bags for? Or maybe is this where I find my future spouse and live happily ever after with incredible street food? Aha! Well, this is your episode. We're here to dive deep, peel back the layers, and help you decide whether the bustling markets of Bangladesh or the ancient ruins of Guatemala call to your soul. Wow!
Exactly. We're not just scratching the surface here. Folks, we're talking about everything from daily life and economic landscapes to cultural nuances and, yes, even where to find the best cup of coffee, or at least, something less existential than Leo's morning brew. If you're pondering a move, planning an extended visit, or just curious about how diverse our planet truly is, this podcast is designed to be your comprehensive guide. We aim to clear up any confusion and give you the real, unfiltered insights you need to make your choice.
You know, it's funny sometimes people ask me, Leo, where do you even get all this obscure knowledge about international customs and how to avoid questionable street food? And I just tell them, well, some of us actually pay attention when we travel, unlike others who are busy battling elevators. But seriously, this deep dive is only possible thanks to the fantastic support from our friends at Jetoff AI. They're making sure we can keep these conversations going, bridging continents one episode at a time.
That's right. Jetoff AI helps us bring these global comparisons straight to your ears and screens. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It's like sending us a virtual high five. And who doesn't love a good high five? Oh, your support lets us keep exploring, keep laughing, and keep sharing these unique stories. We're going to cover everything from the cost of living to the local flavors, so settle in, grab your beverage of choice hopefully. Yours tastes better than Leo's, and let's get into it. Let's jump straight into general safety and crime rates, a topic that's always on people's minds, especially when they're thinking about exploring new places. I've heard some wild stories about traffic in Bangladesh. It's like a symphony of horns and rickshaws, right? But is that really a safety concern or just a very loud welcome?
Mira, you're not wrong. The traffic in Dhaka can feel like a contact sport, not just a commute. Whoa, but let's clarify when we talk about safety in Bangladesh. It's generally a low crime rate country in terms of violent crime, especially outside of major urban centers. It's more about street-smart navigation than dodging anything truly sinister. Petty theft, like pickpocketing in crowded bazaars or bus stations, is the more common concern. So, keep your wallet in a front pocket. Not some back pocket, not some back pocket.
That makes sense. It's like any big city, really you have to be mindful of your belongings. I'm certain that our listeners who've navigated busy markets anywhere in the world would agree with me. Speaking of that, I once saw someone trying to do a pickpocket's jig in a crowded street and I nearly shouted, "Oops, you dropped your phone, mate." And they just froze. I think my energy actually scared them more than the thought of getting caught. But what about the cultural side of safety there?
It absolutely is, Mira. Wow, the concept of a guest is like a god is deeply ingrained. So, while you might encounter the occasional opportunistic individual, the general social fabric in Bangladesh is incredibly welcoming and communal. People often look out for each other, especially for foreigners. You'll find shopkeepers who remember your face, or locals who go out of their way to guide you. That informal community watch, that eyes on the street vibe, can be a surprising layer of safety.
I love that informal community watch idea. It's like every innocent honorary tour guide and security guard combined. Now, let's look at Guatemala. It's often painted with a different brush when it comes to safety. Are we talking Indiana Jones levels of adventure, or is it more nuanced than the headlines suggest?
No, we're not quite at Indiana Jones level, Mira, unless you're searching for ancient ruins, which is a different kind of adventure. Wow, Guatemala does have a higher crime rate, particularly in certain areas of Guatemala City and some border regions. Ouch! Gang-related violence, the Maras, is a significant issue, but it's largely localized to specific neighborhoods and doesn't generally affect tourist zones. Think of it like this: you wouldn't wander into a known rough neighborhood in any big city without caution.
For the average traveler, sticking to the well-trodden paths or guided tours is key, right? That's like me trying to stick to my diet. If I don't go near the cookie aisle, I'm generally safe. But seriously, if you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you've had an experience that surprised you in either country. We're always curious about your perspectives.
Absolutely, Mira. For Guatemala, tourist destinations like Antigua, Lake Catalan, and the Tikal ruins are generally considered safe for visitors. They have a strong tourism police presence and local communities are invested in keeping visitors secure. You'll often see more security guards, both private and public, in these areas. It's about being street smart, avoiding walking alone at night in unlit areas, and being aware of your surroundings, just like you would in, say, a bustling European capital.
It sounds like for both countries, situational awareness is the best travel companion. So, while Bangladesh leans more on its innate hospitality and community spirit for general safety, Guatemala's tourist spots rely on more visible security measures. It's a spectrum, not a binary.
Exactly. And let's not forget the basic stuff: don't flash expensive jewelry, be discreet with cash, and if someone tries to sell you a very special ancient artifact on the street, it's probably just a painted rock. I once bought a genuine Mayan artifact that turned out to be a painted potato. Oops. Still, made for a good story.
A painted potato. Wow. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have you ever bought a genuine artifact that turned out to be something else entirely? Tell us about it in the comments below. And hey, while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us bring you more of these conversations, thanks to the support of Jet-Off AI.
Indeed. Our friends at Jet-Off AI make sure we can keep these vital, potato-related discussions going. So whether you're eyeing the bustling energy of Dhaka or the ancient wonders near Lake Catalan, remember that general safety in both Bangladesh and Guatemala comes down to common sense precautions on respecting local customs.
Speaking of finding your footing in a new place, let's look at this topic: political stability and social harmony. It's kind of like trying to do a complicated dance routine when the floor keeps shifting. Bangladesh, it's known for having a really lively political scene. Sometimes it feels like every other day there's a new debate, a new rally, or a new reason for passionate discussions.
Lively is one way to put it, Mira. Lively is one way to put it, Mira. I'd say it's more like a perpetual Broadway show with a cast of millions, all trying to out-sing each other's political anthems. Whoa, you're right. Bangladesh's political landscape can be a bit of a whirlwind. Elections, protests, shifts in power, it's a lot to keep track of, especially for an outsider. I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would agree with me. Sometimes you just want to grab a cup of coffee and watch the news from a safe distance.
Well, while the political stage can be quite dramatic, the social harmony often shines through, especially in daily life. Bangladeshis are incredibly resilient and have a strong sense of community. Despite any political ups and downs, people generally come together, particularly during festivals or family events. It's like, no matter what's happening in the news, there's always time for a good meal and a shared laugh. Aha! You know, Leo, I was actually curious about Watong's sense of unity in your communities, even when things get heated in your communities.
It's true. There's an undeniable warmth in the social fabric there. They know how to get on with life, which is admirable. Though I did once hear a story about a street vendor who started shouting political slogans instead of selling mangoes. Oops. Made for a confusing market experience. Now, shifting gears a bit to Guatemala, which has its own intricate history when it comes to political stability. It's not exactly a stranger to turbulent times, you know?
Well, right. Guatemala has certainly faced its share of challenges in the past, and that history shapes its present. But from what I've seen, it's also a place with incredible cultural richness and a deep sense of community, especially within its indigenous populations. Oh, they hold on to their traditions so fiercely, it's really its own thing. It's like even if the central government is doing its own thing, the villages maintain their own vibrant pulse. It makes you want to join one of their traditional dances, doesn't it?
I imagine my dancing would be more of a cautionary tale than a cultural exchange. But seriously, when you look at Guatemala, the political landscape has often been influenced by external factors or internal divisions, leading to periods of unrest. For expats, this can mean keeping an eye on local news and understanding the nuances of how things operate. It's less about dramatic rallies on every corner and more about a simmering complexity. It's like a chessboard where some pieces move in unexpected ways.
And even with that complexity, the spirit of social harmony in Guatemala is powerful. The way different ethnic groups coexist, celebrating their heritage, it's truly a mosaic of cultures. Aha! It's not without its challenges, of course, but the resilience of the people, their ability to find peace amidst everything, is remarkable. It reminds me of how people can still find joy and connection even in a busy market. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. We love hearing your perspectives.
That's a fair point. Both countries, in their own ways, demonstrate that social harmony can often thrive, even when political systems are finding their footing or navigating rough terrain. It's a testament to human adaptability, isn't it? You might have politicians in a shouting match, but then see neighbors sharing a meal and laughing about the weather. It's almost absurd how quickly daily life can normalize, even after a headline-grabbing event.
It is, and for anyone thinking about moving to or visiting these places, understanding this dynamic is crucial. You're not just observing politics, you're seeing how people genuinely live and connect despite everything. Oh, it's like yes. The political leaders might be squabbling, but the local shopkeeper is still going to offer you a discount with a smile.
Exactly. So you might read headlines that make you think twice. Remember, there's always the underlying current of daily life, where people are just trying to live, laugh, and occasionally complain about the local traffic. It's never as simple as stable or unstable. It's about what happens on the ground.
And that's where the real story is, isn't it? It's fascinating how a country's entire heartbeat, its daily rhythm, changes based on its economic pulse, isn't it? Speaking of which, let's talk about the economic conditions and cost of living in Bangladesh and Guatemala. I always wonder how people manage to budget in places where a coffee costs less than a smile.
Coffee less than a smile? Oh, Mira, that's a truly unique metric, I must say. I'm taking notes for my next stand-up routine, the Global Smile to Coffee Index. But seriously, if you're looking at Bangladesh, the economy is quite dynamic, heavily driven by its ready-made garment industry. They're churning out clothes faster than I can decide what to wear in the morning. Wow. And let's not forget the massive remittances from overseas workers keeping things afloat.
Oh, you and your wardrobe decisions. Oh, Bangladesh's growth is pretty impressive, especially with that garment sector. It's like a giant, super efficient sewing machine for the world. Aha! For an expat, the cost of living there can be incredibly low. You can probably rent a decent apartment for what some people spend on a fancy brunch. Oh, I'm certain that our listeners living in Dhaka would agree with me, wouldn't you guys?
Rent for a brunch? Whoa. I'm picturing a studio apartment that comes with a complimentary mimosa for the same price. But truly, while the cost of living in Bangladesh is low for locals, even expats find it remarkably affordable outside of the very swanky areas of Dhaka. That said, public transport is often a vibrant chaos, and infrastructure can be an adventure. Not exactly the high-speed rail experience.
Chaos can be fun though. Leo, it's like a daily improv show. But when we talk about Guatemala, it's a whole different economic flavor. Their economy is steeped in agriculture, coffee, sugar, bananas. It's like a tropical fruit basket, waiting to be delivered to your door. And they also rely heavily on remittances, mostly from the US. So, quite a bit in the US.
Flying in from abroad like a financial bird, Yeah, Guatemala's economy, while picturesque with its coffee plantations, also faces some deep-rooted challenges like poverty and inequality. It's not as industrially driven as Bangladesh, so job opportunities for expats are often concentrated in specific niches, like tourism or international NGOs. You won't just wander in and get a tech job, unless it's for a very specific skill. Oh.
That's a good point, Leo. So, if you're an expat thinking of moving to either of these, your financial reality really depends on why you're there. In Bangladesh, you might be an NGO worker or in high-level management for a garment factory. In Guatemala, perhaps you're teaching English, working for a non-profit, or in the burgeoning tourism sector. The cost of living is generally lower, but Bangladesh usually takes the prize for sheer affordability. What do you think, listeners? Been to either? How did your wallet feel?
The YouTube comments where the real economic experts reside. And if you like what we're rattling on about, feel free to hit that like button while you're there. But to the numbers, while both countries offer a low cost of living, the quality and accessibility of certain amenities might differ. In Bangladesh, for example, access to high-end imported goods might be pricier due to taxes. Ouch. While in Guatemala, certain services or imported comforts can also feel steep. It's a trade-off, really.
Your travel magri usually involves finding the nearest coffee shop, Leo. Oops. But yes, you're right. The nuances are important. If you're earning a foreign salary in either country, you'll likely feel quite comfortable. If you're earning locally, it's a different story. And for those looking to start a business, both have informal sectors that are thriving, but also regulatory hurdles. You might need to consult someone who knows their way around both the official paperwork and the unwritten rules.
Unwritten rules, my favorite kind. Unwritten rules, my favorite kind. Unwritten rules, my favorite kind. I once tried to decipher a local market's unwritten rules and ended up with 5 extra chickens. Whoa, but seriously, understanding the local economic landscape, whether it's Bangladesh's vibrant factories or Guatemala's scenic agricultural backbone, is key. And remember, for more in-depth info on planning your global moves and financial considerations, under Terafe, I have some fantastic resources. It's all about making smart choices, right?
It is indeed about smart choices and avoiding impulse chicken purchases. So, whether you're dreaming of a bustling life in Dhaka or a tranquil one among the Guatemalan coffee fields, your economic reality will look very different. The numbers tell one story, but daily life adds all the color. Oh, Alkarakapik, we compare accommodation options and quality. And honestly, after a long journey, the first thing I dream about is a soft bed in a room where I can just unpack my soul. So when we talk about places like Bangladesh and Guatemala, where do we even begin to find that perfect spot to lay your head?
Mira, you always make it sound like you're looking for a luxury spa, not just a place to sleep. For me, as long as there aren't any surprise roommates, and by that, I mean the eight-legged kind. I'm usually good. But let's unpack these two countries, because housing is never as simple as just a bed.
You're right, Leo. No surprise roommates. Oh, when you think of Bangladesh, particularly a city like Dhaka, you're looking at a bustling metropolis. The accommodation here often means high-rise apartments. For expats, many opt for gated communities, which offer more security and amenities. Living in Bangladesh. Think about better living in Bangladesh. Think about better urban living.
Absolutely mirror. Gated communities. From my observations, these places in Dhaka can range from perfectly decent to surprisingly lavish, but you definitely feel that urban density. You're almost always looking upwards to find your home. I've heard some rental agreements require enough upfront money to buy a small car wall. Makes you wonder if they're renting an apartment or selling you a piece of the sky.
A piece of the sky. I love that. And speaking of pieces of the sky, let's look at Guatemala. It's a completely different vibe. You have Guatemala City with its more modern, often American-style apartments and suburban homes. But then you have places like Antigua, which is pure colonial charm. Wow. Imagine living in a colorful house with a courtyard, surrounded by cobblestone streets and volcanoes. It's like stepping into a painting.
A painting that might need a bit of earthquake reinforcement if history is any guide. But you're right, the aesthetic contrast is striking. While Antigua offers that historic, often rustic luxury, I've seen some of those beautiful old places where the plumbing might be a charming antique itself. Ouch. And then you have the completely different experience of places like Lake Atitlan, where you can find eco-lodges or simple, almost off-grid cabins. It's not a luxury hotel.
An experience for sure. I mean, who doesn't love a good eco-lodge? But let's talk quality, because that's what truly shapes your living experience. In Bangladesh, while many places are comfortable, consistency can be a challenge. Sometimes you might face power outages or water issues, especially outside the most modern developments. It's like the city is saying, surprise. Today's theme is uninterrupted living, maybe.
Exactly. The local infrastructure can definitely add a layer of adventure to your daily routine, even in urban Bangladesh. You learn to appreciate constant electricity like it's a new invention. Now, in Guatemala, especially in expat-heavy areas, the quality is generally quite good, meeting international standards. However, if you venture into more rural areas, you might find infrastructure is less developed. It's all about balancing that picturesque charm with practical necessities.
That's a key point. What about finding these places? In Bangladesh, securing a rental often involves a significant security deposit, sometimes even several months' rent up front. Whoa. It's like they're making sure you're truly committed to staying. You can check out sites like Jetafei for more details on rental processes and typical costs in these areas.
And they should. Especially for Bangladesh, finding reliable listings online can be a bit of a treasure hunt. You really need local connections or a trusted agent. In Guatemala, it's a bit more straightforward, especially in major cities. You'll find a range of options on local rental platforms, though securing a place often still requires a decent deposit. It's the international standard now, I guess. Though I still prefer the pay-as-you-go model of a hammock in the jungle.
Hammock in the jungle sounds like your ideal apartment, Leo. But for those of us who prefer four walls and a roof, both countries offer a spectrum. Bangladesh's housing market has a unique style of fusion of traditional elements with modern high-rises. In Guatemala, it's that gorgeous mix of colonial Spanish architecture, modern builds, and indigenous influences, especially in the highlands. Wow! It's not just a place to live, it's a cultural statement.
A cultural statement you might be paying through the nose for if it's in a prime location in Antigua. Oh, but you do get character, and that's something a lot of people prioritize. So, whether you're looking for an urban jungle apartment in Dhaka or a charming colonial abode in Antigua, both countries certainly have unique offerings. You just have to decide if you want your character to come with a consistent power supply or a story for your next podcast. And if you've got a crazy housing story, share it in the comments below on YouTube.
Well, since we just talked about how much fun it is to get lost in a new culture, let's look at this topic ease of visa. immigration, and official procedures. Because sometimes just getting into a country can feel like its own adventure, right?
Aha! You said it, Mira. For me, any process involving official procedures usually means a direct path to a new sting-up routine about bureaucracy. Ah. It's like the universe's way of testing our patience, but in triplicate, and often in a language you don't understand. Speaking of which, Bangladesh and Guatemala, two incredible places, but when it comes to paperwork, are we talking a stroll in the park or an obstacle course with very sharp pens?
Leo, always seeing the humor in mountains of forms. My goodness, I imagine you turn filling out a customs declaration into a dramatic monologue. But seriously, in Bangladesh, for many visitors, getting a visa can feel a bit like solving a riddle. Wow, depending on your nationality, you might need to apply in advance, and it's not always the quickest process. You'll need an invitation letter. Who've navigated this would agree that patience is definitely a virtue.
Patience. Yes, and perhaps a very strong cup of coffee for the queue. For me, a long queue is any queue that's longer than my arm. But on the bright side, I've heard once you're there, the warmth of the Bangladeshi people makes up for it. Though I'm curious, does that warmth extend to the immigration officers? Oh, I'm picturing someone trying to stamp your passport while also offering you a cup of chai. That'd be a unique experience.
Oh, I was just about to. I've heard stories that the personal touch can actually make things smoother sometimes, depending on the person. Ooh, but let's hop over to Guatemala. It's generally quite straightforward for tourists. Often you get a 90-day stamp on arrival, which is a breath of fresh air compared to some places. It's part of the CA4 agreement, which lets you travel freely between Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Honduras. That's pretty neat, isn't it?
That sounds like a dream for an impulsive traveler like me. One visa, for chances to get hilariously lost. Oh, I just need to remember which country I'm in when I order a street taco. Oops. But then, if you're thinking of staying longer in Guatemala, say for work or to live, the landscape shifts. Suddenly, those breezy procedures get a bit more complex, with specific visas and residency permits. You're talking about proving income, getting local police checks. It's less grab your backpack and go in, more and more grab pack and go in more.
That's true. It's almost like they say, come visit, it's easy. But if you want to stay, let's see how much you really want to say. And speaking of official procedures, both countries have their fair share of local bureaucracy once you're in. Registering with local authorities, getting a local ID, sometimes even opening a bank account can feel like a quest in itself. Do you guys agree with us? I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in these countries think about this.
A quest, yes. Probably involving a dragon made of paperwork. I swear, sometimes I think these forms are designed to be impossible, just to weed out the less determined. But you know, a good online resource can really be a lifeline. That's why platforms like Jet-Off AI are so crucial for getting the right information before you even pack your bags. It's like having a digital tour guide for the bureaucratic jungle. Wow!
That's a perfect way to put it. Because whether it's Bangladesh or Guatemala, understanding the cultural nuances of official interactions is also key. Oh, sometimes a friendly smile and a bit of patience can open doors faster than anything else. And while the rules are important, sometimes local advice from people who've been through it makes all the difference.
Indeed. Because no matter how many official procedures you read about online, nothing prepares you for the look on someone's face when you hand them the wrong form. Oops. I once accidentally gave an immigration officer a grocery list instead of my arrival card. He just looked at me, then back at the list, and finally asked, "Do you have the mangoes?" I just froze in thought. That's definitely going in the next set.
Oh, Leo. I'm pretty sure you could get a visa just by making the immigration officer laugh. Wow, but that's the thing, right? Despite the forms in the waiting, it's often the human element that makes these experiences memorable. Whether it's the meticulous process in Bangladesh or the smoother entry into Guatemala, they both offer a chance to engage with a new system.
And potentially get some good material out of it. So, for all you folks thinking of heading to Bangladesh or Guatemala, check those visa requirements, brace yourselves for a little paperwork, and maybe bring a spare Mongo for the officer. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like if you've ever had a surprisingly human interaction during an official procedure.
Let's look at this topic, access to and quality of health services, which is crucial for anyone thinking about living anywhere, not just traveling. When I think of healthcare in countries like Bangladesh, my mind immediately jumps to the bustling energy and community spirit. It's truly fascinating, isn't it? How different systems work.
Fascinating indeed, Mira. Or perhaps fashionably complex. Especially when you're navigating it as an expat. I always picture someone landing in Dhaka, feeling a bit under the weather, and then realizing their private insurance card might as well be a decorative coaster. In Bangladesh, the public health system, while widespread, can be quite the adventure in terms of wait times and resources. You'll find crowds that make rush hour feel like a quiet Sunday afternoon stroll. Whoa!
But wait. I want to add something there. You're right about the public system. But speaking of adventures, for those with a bit more budget, the private hospitals in major cities like Dhaka are a different world entirely. Well, they often have modern facilities and English-speaking staff. It's like stepping into a spa almost. Well, a very medical spa, anyway. You just have to know where to find them. I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in Bangladesh think about this. Do you guys rely on private options too?
Medical spa, haha. Only you here, Mira. I suppose if you can afford it, every country has its hidden gems. In Bangladesh, I've heard stories about some private facilities that are surprisingly well equipped, almost making you forget you're not in a Western hospital. But then you step outside, and the reality check hits you, right? Ouch! Now, if we shift our focus to Guatemala, you find a similar story of contrasts, but with its own unique flavor.
Oh, yes, Guatemala. You're right. The contrast is stark, like going from a vibrant spice market to a lush coffee plantation. In Guatemala City, much like Dhaka, the private hospitals can be top-notch, some even with US accreditations. Well, for expats, if you're in the capital, you're pretty well covered if you have good private insurance. It's almost like they've perfected the art of the expat bubble there.
Expat bubble, aha. You nailed it. You definitely want to be in that bubble in Guatemala if you need serious medical care. Because outside of the capital, especially in rural areas, the public health infrastructure can be rustic. We're talking basic clinics, limited staff, and equipment that might have seen better days back when dinosaurs roamed. Whoa, it's definitely not the place you want to be performing impromptu self-diagnosis for you to content.
Bet you're right. Being prepared is key. It reminds me of one time I had a tiny cut, and I thought I needed a whole field hospital. Oops. Anyway, speaking of rural areas, both Bangladesh and Guatemala face challenges with getting quality care to everyone. It's not just about hospitals. It's about access, right? Think about the journey some people might have to make just to see a doctor.
Exactly. And let's not forget the cultural nuances. In Bangladesh, you have a strong emphasis on family support during illness, and traditional medicine practices often coexist with modern ones. It's a blend of ancient wisdom and whatever the latest pharmaceutical ad is pushing. In Guatemala, you also see traditional healers, especially among the indigenous communities, often working alongside the modern system, or sometimes completely independently.
Well, that's an important point, Leo. It's not just about the sterile white walls of a hospital. It's about the entire ecosystem of Wellbeing. For expats or long-term visitors, embracing these local traditions, even if just for curiosity, can be a really enriching experience. Plus, I'm sure some of those traditional remedies involve herbs that taste like a forgotten sock, But hey, it's an adventure. I'm certain that our listeners would agree. Sometimes the unexpected path leads to the best stories. If you like what we're chatting about, why not hit that on YouTube?
Ah, that's a sensory experience I'll have to skip. That's a sensory experience I'll have to skip. That's your right? The integration of traditional and modern care is a unique aspect of healthcare in both places. Overall, for expats in Bangladesh and Guatemala, the takeaway is pretty simple: always secure comprehensive private health insurance. And maybe pack a travel first aid kit just in case your medical adventure needs a preliminary pit stop. Whoa! Don't forget to check out more details and resources on JetOff.
Let's look at this topic: access to and quality of health services, which is crucial for anyone thinking about living anywhere, not just traveling. When I think of healthcare in countries like Bangladesh, my mind immediately jumps to the bustling energy and community spirit. It's truly fascinating, isn't it? How different systems work. Oh,
Fascinating indeed, Mira. Or perhaps fashionably complex. Especially when you're navigating it as an expat. I always picture someone landing in Dhaka, feeling a bit under the weather, and then realizing their private insurance card might as well be a decorative coaster. In Bangladesh, the public health system, while widespread, can be quite the adventure in terms of wait times and resources. You'll find crowds that make rush hour feel like a quiet Sunday afternoon stroll.
but wait. I want to add something there. You're right about the public system, but speaking of adventures for those with a bit more budget, the private hospitals in major cities like Dhaka are a different world entirely. Wow. They often have modern facilities and English-speaking staff. It's like stepping into a spa. Almost. Well, a very medical spa. Anyway, you just have to know where to find them. I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in Bangladesh think about this. Do you guys rely on private options too?
Medical spa. Medical spa. Oh, I suppose if you can afford it. Every country has its hidden gems. In Bangladesh, I've heard stories about some private facilities that are surprisingly well equipped, almost making you forget you're not in a Western hospital. But then you step outside, and the reality check hits you, right? Ouch! Now, if we shift our focus to Guatemala, you find a similar story of contrasts, but with its own unique flavor.
Ooh, yes. Guatemala. You're right. The contrast is stark. Like going from a vibrant spice market to a lush coffee plantation. In Guatemala City, much like Dhaka, the private hospitals can be top-notch, some even with US accreditations. Wow. For expats, if you're in the capital, you're pretty well covered if you have good private insurance. It's almost like they've perfected the art of the expat bubble there.
Expat bubble, You nailed it. You definitely want to be in that bubble in Guatemala if you need serious medical care. Because outside of the capital, especially in rural areas, the public health infrastructure can be rustic. We're talking basic clinics, limited staff, and equipment that might have soars roamed. Whoa, it's definitely not the place you want to be performing impromptu self-diagnosis for your impromptu self-dier.
But you're right, being prepared is key. It reminds me of one time I had a tiny cut, and I thought I needed a whole field hospital. Oops. Anyway, speaking of rural areas, both Bangladesh and Guatemala face challenges with getting quality care to everyone. It's not just about hospitals, it's about access, right? Think about the journey some people might have to make just to see a doctor.
And let's not forget the cultural nuances. In Bangladesh, you have a strong emphasis on family support during illness. And traditional medicine practices often coexist with modern ones. It's a blend of ancient wisdom and whatever the latest pharmaceutical ad is pushing. In Guatemala, you also see traditional healers, especially among the indigenous communities, often working alongside the modern system or some.
Wow, That's an important point, Neo. It's not just about the stale white walls of a hospital. It's about the entire ecosystem of Wellbine. For expats or long-term visitors, embracing these local traditions, even if just for curiosity, can be a really enriching experience. Plus, I'm sure some of those traditional remedies involve herbs that taste like a forgotten sock. But hey, it's an adventure. I'm certain that our listeners would agree. Sometimes the unexpected path leads to the best stories. If you like what we're chatting about, why not hit that on YouTube out?
The taste of a forgotten sock. That's a sensory experience I'll have to skip. But you're right. The integration of traditional and modern care is a unique aspect of healthcare in both places. Overall, for expats in Bangladesh and Guatemala, the
Oh, alright everyone, let's zoom in on a topic that truly drives our daily lives or maybe brings it to a standstill: transportation infrastructure and convenience. You know, Leo, thinking about getting around in a new place always sparks my adventurous spirit. It's like, what's the local dance of the roads? Is it a graceful ballet or a chaotic mosh pit?
Well, for some places, it's definitely a mosh pit where everyone is trying to crowd surf over a bus. Speaking of chaotic dance move, let's talk about Bangladesh and Guatemala. Mira, you always look for the bright side, but sometimes the bright side is just the glare off 1,000 car bumpers. Ouch!
But every challenge is an opportunity for a new story, right? Let's kick off with Bangladesh. It's a country that really showcases resilience in its transport. Think about Dhaka's traffic, it's legendary. But also, how many rickshaws can one street hold? Wow, they are everywhere, weaving through everything. It's like a vibrant, human-powered river.
A river that occasionally floods. A rickshaw is an icon of Bangladesh, isn't it? But then you have the buses packed like sardines, sometimes with people hanging off the side. I've seen some things. Whoa. It's less about convenience and more about, can I actually get there? And if you're not careful, your bag might get its own sightseeing tour without you. But it's a living, breathing system. You can't deny that.
Well, roads in major cities can be a bit of a bumpy ride, let's say. But then you see these amazing efforts to build flyers and new bridges, especially around Dhaka, trying to ease the incredible congestion. It's a constant evolution, isn't it? And speaking of movement, let's not forget the waterways. Bangladesh is crisscrossed by rivers, so boats and ferries are super important. It's not just a commute, it's a journey, sometimes even overnight.
Right. It's a journey where you might share a cabin with a goat. And if you're trying to plan that journey, good luck. You need local intel, or you're just guessing. I bet our listeners in Bangladesh could write a book on their daily commute adventures. Tell us about it in the comments, seriously. Now, let's shift our gears, or maybe our chicken bus, to Guatemala.
Ooh, Guatemala. You know, I always picture colorful chicken buses there. They're legendary. These old American school buses, brightly painted, with loud music, and often carrying everything from people to actual chickens. Wow. It's not just transport, it's a cultural experience, a mobile work of art. And the drivers are incredibly skilled, navigating those winding mountain roads.
Skilled is one word for it. Daredevils is another. Whoa. I remember once, I thought we were going to become one with the mountain itself. My heart was practically doing a salsa in my chest. Ouch. They're definitely not for the faint of heart, or those who get carsick easily. And while charming, they're not exactly known for sticking to a timetable. You wait until one shows up. It's an interesting approach to punctuality.
Well, maybe it's a lesson in patience, Leo. Besides the chicken buses, Guatemala also has shuttles and taxis, especially for tourists. And in the bigger cities like Guatemala City, you have more modern bus systems developing, similar to what you see in other urban centers. So, while it still has that rustic charm, it's evolving. Have you seen any of their train systems? Or are they more focused on roads?
Train systems in Guatemala are pretty limited for passenger travel these days, mostly freight. So, yeah, it's all about the roads and the buses, which often means dealing with varying road quality. Some are perfectly fine, others, well, you might lose a filling. And of course, in the rainy season, some of those upaved roads can become an adventure in themselves. Wow. If you're planning a trip, make sure you check out Jet Off AI for some transportation tips, especially for these kind of journeys.
Good point. So, we're talking about getting around for travelers. What would you say is the biggest difference? In Bangladesh, it feels like a vibrant, dense network, even with the traffic. In Guatemala, it's more about navigating varied terrain.
Exactly. Bangladesh is about density and volume, getting a huge population moving in limited space. Guatemala is about connecting communities across challenging, often mountainous landscapes. The challenges are different. In Bangladesh, you're looking at gridlock. In Guatemala, you're looking at a scenic but sometimes perilous winding road. So it really depends on what kind of convenience you're after. Do you want to be able to jump on any moving thing? Or do you prefer a slightly less heart-stopping ride?
Aha! I guess for some, a chicken bus might be the thrill of a lifetime. And for others, a rickshaw at Dhaka is pure exhilaration. It's all about perspective, right? And hey, if you guys have any wild transportation stories from Bangladesh or Guatemala, we'd love to read them. Drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our chaotic insights. Ew, let's turn our attention to something incredibly practical, especially for anyone dreaming of travel or a long-term stay. Language barriers and ease of communication. I'm thinking about Bangladesh, where the official language is Bengali or Bangla. For me, whenever I hear Bengali, I immediately think of the beautiful script, almost like art. Wow, but how easy is it to get by if you don't speak it?
So, I think that we can conquer that. Miro, while I'm thinking, will my coffee order get translated correctly? In Bangladesh. You're absolutely right, Bangla is king. If you're in Dhaka, especially in business districts or around universities, you'll find more English speakers. But step outside those bubbles, and suddenly your mime skills will be put to the ultimate test. It's like a silent comedy show where you're the star. Whether you like it, agree with me, some Bangladesh.
Oh, I can just picture you trying to order a triple shot espresso with dramatic hand gestures. Oops. But seriously, Leo, you're right, a smile goes a long way. What about communication norms beyond just the words? Like, do they use a lot of indirect speech, or are people pretty direct? I've heard that sometimes in cultures where politeness is key, a yes might not always mean yes. In the way we understand it. Do you guys agree with us? Let us know in the comments section on YouTube.
That's a sharp observation, Mira. In Bangladesh, while people are generally very hospitable, direct confrontation or blunt refusal can be seen as impolite. So, sometimes, a maybe or a we'll see can actually mean probably not. It's a delicate dance of diplomacy. Whoa. You have to read between the lines, which, for a little-minded comedian like me, is a whole new layer of material. Now, speaking of unique linguistic landscapes, let's hop over to Guatemala.
Absolutely, Guatemala is a linguistic mosaic. Wow, while Spanish is the most widely spoken, there are over 20 recognized indigenous Mayan languages, like Kayasihi, Kokusi Haikel, and more. And imagine trying to navigate that. It's like having 20 different versions of "excuse me, where's the nearest dance party? Where's the nearest dance party?" So, If you're in Antigua or Lake Catalan, you might find some English speakers, but head into the highlands and Spanish becomes non-negotiable.
Oh, I think that we can conquer that. 20 ways to ask for a dance party. I love that, Mira. I'm just picturing you trying to learn all 20 simultaneously. Oops. But for real, this is where it gets tricky for expats. If you're a Spanish speaker, you're good for most of Guatemala, but in deeply rural, indigenous communities, you could still hit a wall. It's not just about what words you use, but the tone, the respect, the pace of conversation. It's less about the grammar and more about the cultural rhythm, like linguistic salsa dance.
That's so true, Leo. It's about respecting the rhythm. Sometimes, a long pause in a conversation can mean something entirely different from what we expect. In both Bangladesh and Guatemala, patience is definitely a virtue when it comes to communication. It's not just about translating words, it's about understanding the unspoken. For instance, in many collectivist cultures, group harmony is prioritized over individual expression, which can influence how things are said or not said. Do you think this is wrong? Is it just a different way of connecting?
I can see you trying to teach me patience, Mira. Ouch! But you hit on a crucial point. While English might get you by in specific tourist pockets or urban centers in both Bangladesh and Guatemala, deep immersion, whether for work or just living, requires a real commitment to the local language. Otherwise, you're always on the outside looking in, relying on interpreters or Google Translate, which, let's be honest, can lead to some hilarious miscommunications itself. Wow!
Oh, I've had my share of those bizarre menu translations. Oh, but, learning even a few basic phrases like, hello, thank you, and I'm sorry, I don't understand, can genuinely open doors. It shows effort and respect, and people usually appreciate that. Even if you butcher the pronunciation, they'll often be more willing to help you. It's like saying, hey, I'm trying to join your dance, don't be about the afraid to try.
You're right, Mira. The effort is what counts. And honestly, it usually leads to some of the best travel stories. I always say, if you're not making at least one communication blunder a day, you're not trying hard enough. But it's also about figuring out where you want to be. If you're aiming for a major city, English will take you further. But if you dream of a rural village experience, those language apps better be well charged. And don't forget to like this video on YouTube if you're enjoying our linguistic adventures.
Leo, when we talk about a country's heart, its cultural diversity and tolerance are often the biggest beats. It's like a giant, colorful tapestry. In some places, the threads are all neatly aligned. In others, they're wildly interwoven, sometimes even tangling a bit. Oh...
Mira, you're always finding a metaphor, aren't you? A tapestry, really? I'd say it's more like a particularly chaotic potluck. Everyone brings their own dish. Some are amazing. Some are, well, challenging, and you just hope nobody mixes up the sweet and sour. Speaking of which, let's dig into Bangladesh first.
Now, Bangladesh, for me, brings to mind a vibrant mosaic. While it's predominantly Bengali and Muslim, you have significant Hindu, Buddhist, and Christian communities. Wow, and let's not forget the indigenous groups and places like the Chittagong Hill Tracts, all with their own languages and customs. It's like a never-ending festival of traditions.
Right, it's a mosaic, but sometimes those mosaic pieces decide they don't quite fit together. While there's a strong sense of national identity, you do hear about tensions. It's not always sunshine and marigolds. It's like that relative at the potluck who brings a dish no one asked for and then insists everyone try it. Ouch. But seriously, if you're exploring beyond the bustling cities, those differences become more noticeable.
Oh, come on. Leo, every family has a little drama. But on the streets, especially in Dhaka, You see incredible coexistence. People from all walks of life sharing tea, discussing cricket, that sort of thing. It's a testament to daily tolerance, even if the news sometimes focuses on the bumps. I'm certain our listeners living there would agree with me. Wouldn't you guys? Oh,
I'm sure some would. Well, let's hop from the Bay of Bengal to the highlands of Central America, shall we? Guatemala. Now, there's a place where diversity truly shines, but with a complex history, to put it mildly. It's like the biggest, most colorful quilt you've ever seen. But some of the stitches are still a bit frayed from past conflicts.
wow. Guatemala immediately makes me think of the stunning Mayan heritage. It's truly incredible. You have so many indigenous groups, Kay. Aisihi, Kokyu, Haikel, Mom each with their distinct languages, traditional dress, and spiritual practices. It's a living, breathing history book, and they've held on to their identity so fiercely. It's like every day is a cultural parade.
It's definitely a parade, Mira, but sometimes it feels like different parts of the parade are on different streets. While the indigenous cultures are incredibly rich, there's a historical divide with the Ladino majority. It's like some folks are dancing salsa and others are performing a traditional Mayan ceremony, but they're not always on the same dance floor. The past has left some deep scars, and genuine tolerance is still a work in progress for some.
That's true, Leo. It's true, Leo. History can be heavy, but there are also powerful movements towards reconciliation and recognition of indigenous rights. I've read about incredible initiatives where communities are working to bridge those gaps, celebrating their collective identity while honoring their unique heritage. It's like watching a group of artists finally collaborating on a mural after a long debate. It gives me so much hope.
Hope is good. But let's be real. Navigating that kind of historical baggage isn't easy. You'll find pockets of amazing acceptance and vibrant cultural exchange, and then you'll encounter remnants of systemic issues. It's like going to a market, you'll find incredible treasures, but you also need to watch your wallet. And speaking of navigating, remember to check out JetOff for travel insights, especially if you're planning on diving into places with such rich, yet complex, cultural landscapes.
Wow, that's a clever plug, Leo. So, if you're planning a trip, JetOff, I can tell you about the local customs, maybe even warn you if there's a market that sells sarcastic shitters that only Leo would wear. But, seriously, what strikes me about both countries is the resilience of their cultural identities, despite external pressures or internal challenges.
Absolutely. They're like those ancient buildings that have stood through everything, still standing, still full of character, even if a few bricks are chipped. In Bangladesh, you have a predominantly Muslim society with deep roots, but it's not a monolith. In Guatemala, it's a melting pot where indigenous identity is reclaiming its voice.
It's truly fascinating. And for our listeners, whether you're drawn to the vibrant traditions of Bangladesh or the ancient echoes of Guatemala's Mayan heritage, remember that cultural understanding is a two-way street. It's not just about observing. It's about engaging, respecting, and maybe even trying some of that potluck food, no matter how challenging it looks.
Just make sure it doesn't try to eat you back. Aha. And if you like this deep dive into diversity, hit that like button on YouTube, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, which cultural tapestry would you rather explore first?
Talking about places that truly spark a different kind of interest, let's dive into educational opportunities and language schools in Bangladesh and Guatemala. It's one thing to travel and observe, but what about the foundations, right? How people actually learn and grow there.
Education. The place where some of us, spent more time perfecting our doodle art than our trigonometer. But seriously, looking at these two countries, it's fascinating to see how they approach learning. Bangladesh, for instance, has been making strides in its literacy rates. I mean, they've really pushed for it, which is commendable. Wow.
It really is. You see that dedication everywhere, especially when you visit the universities. Students are so incredibly focused, almost like they're on a mission. Oh, and talking about missions, if you ever tried to learn Bengali, K. Oh, Bangla. It feels like a whole new linguistic adventure. The script to learn is like a beautiful, intricate puzzle. Ah, I tried learning thank you, and it came out sounding like I was ordering a specific type of fish. Oops.
I can just imagine you in a Dhaka market trying to be polite and accidentally negotiating for a prize-winning carp. That's pure comedy gold, Mira. That's pure comedy gold, Mira. The primary language for education is Spanish, which for many outsiders is a bit more accessible. But what's truly amazing there are the efforts to preserve and teach indigenous languages. Wow, that's a whole different level of educational commitment.
Absolutely. It's like having multiple worlds of knowledge in one country. If you're a language enthusiast, Guatemala probably feels like linguistic candy store. Oh, speaking of candy, I'm certain that our listeners who've tried to master a new language in either country would have some hilarious stories about their attempts. Maybe you guys can share them in the comments on YouTube. We love reading those.
Yes, the triumphs and pitfalls of trying to communicate. My own attempts at Spanish in Central America often resulted in me getting offered a second cup of coffee when I was asking for directions. Aha! Clearly, my pronunciation skills need a serious Jet Off AI powered upgrade. Anyway, on the educational side, while Bangladesh is pushing for higher literacy and has a growing number of private universities, getting access to quality education, especially in rural areas, can still be a hurdle.
Guatemala also faces challenges with providing consistent quality and access, especially in remote indigenous communities. You see a real dedication to overcoming these, but it's an uphill climb. Though, I've heard amazing things about some of the community lead initiatives in both places where local leaders are literally building schools brick by brick. Wow, that kind of passion is infectious.
Indeed. It's not just about what the government provides, but what the people create. And for language schools, Guatemala is a huge hub for learning Spanish. Tourists flock there to immerse themselves because it's generally more affordable than, say, Spain. It's a full cultural immersion with your grammar lessons. I wonder if they have special courses for stand-up comedians who just need to order a decent cup of joe without accidentally proposing marriage.
Well, if they don't, they should definitely build one and you'd be their first student, Leo. But seriously, for anyone looking to learn Spanish, or even just brush up, Guatemala offers some incredible immersive programs. And for those considering longer stays, understanding the local educational landscape is crucial. Do you guys, our amazing listeners, think it's easier to learn a language when you're fully immersed, or when you have a structured classroom setting? Let us know.
For me, it's all about forced immersion, usually after I've accidentally ordered something truly bizarre off a menu. But it shows that beyond the formal schools, both countries offer incredible real-world learning environments. You just have to be willing to dive in, make some mistakes, and maybe accidentally insult a local, then recover with a genuine smile.
Or, in your case, a sarcastic grin, Leo. But you're right. The informal learning, like picking up phrases from street vendors or joining local activities, adds so much to the educational experience. It's not just about academic qualifications, it's about cultural fluency too.
And remember, whether you're looking into higher education or just want to learn how to say, "My coffee is too cold" in Bengali or where's the nearest comedy club, in Spanish, the resources are there. Just make sure you check out Jet Off AI for all your travel and relocation needs, because getting there is half the battle, and being prepared is the other half. It helps you find the right support for those learning adventures. Aha.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll do a special live language lesson on YouTube, where Leo can demonstrate his famous ordering of fish when trying to say thank you technique. Oh, it'll be a masterclass in comedic linguistic mishaps.
You are relentless, Mira. But yes, for all our listeners out there, don't hesitate to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. We'll keep bringing you these deep dives, no matter how many linguistic challenges we face.
Let's talk about something that literally shapes how people live their lives, the weather. I'm already picturing dramatic skies and unexpected downpours. Oh, when we talk about Bangladesh and Guatemala, we're really diving into two very different, yet equally intense, climatic experiences. Bangladesh, for instance, is practically a poster child for monsoon seasons, isn't it? Wow, you get these incredibly heavy rains, And it's all about that mighty Ganges Brahmaputra Delta.
Dramatic skies and intense experiences. You make it sound like a reality TV show, Mir. But you're not wrong. Bangladesh really is all about that monsoon life. It's like the country says, hey, bring on the rain, we're built for it. For months, it's just endless downpours, which sounds like my kind of day perfect for staying inside with a coffee and observing the chaos from afar. The humidity must be something else, like walking through a warm, wet towel all the time.
Walking through a warm, wet towel, I can just feel that. But seriously, imagine adapting your entire life around this deluge. It's not just rain, it's a lifestyle. People build their homes on stilts, and their transportation turns into boats. Wow, it's like living in a constant water ballet. And let's not forget the cyclones, those are no joke. Wow. I'm certain that our listeners in Bangladesh could share some wild stories about those. If you have, please let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Cyclones. Right. Because a little monsoon wasn't enough drama. Oops. It's like nature decided, let's add some spinning, destructive wind to the mix just for fun. While Bangladesh is battling water and wind, Guatemala is out there playing a different game entirely. It's tropical, sure, but with a twist altitude. You've got these stunning highlands where it's perpetually spring-like, and then you drop down to the coasts, and it's a whole different kind of heat.
Wow. 3 climates in one, this sounds like a weather sampler pack. Ooh, I love the idea of going from a cool, misty mountain morning to a sun-drenched beach afternoon all in the same day. And while Bangladesh has its monsoons and cyclones, Guatemala has its own dramatic flair with volcanic activity. You get the ash, the rumbling earth, it's like the climate is putting on a show. Speaking of shows, if you're enjoying our banter and find this comparison helpful, do us a huge favor and hit that like button.
Volcanic activity. My kind of drama, as long as I'm observing it from a safe distance, preferably with a very strong latte. It's not exactly climate, in the traditional sense, but ash falls can certainly affect air quality and visibility, turning a sunny day into something out of a disaster movie. It's almost like the Earth's way of saying surprise. And then there are the hurricane seasons that affect both their Caribbean and Pacific coasts. Wow, it's a real double feature of natural power.
Yes, surprise. That's exactly what I'd expect nature to say. It's amazing how resilient people become in these environments. Imagine living in a country where you literally live with the land's temperament. In the highlands of Guatemala, they have these incredible, fertile lands for coffee. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Does the climate impact your daily coffee ritual? For more details on adapting to these climates, and maybe even a coffee guide, check out Jetoff AI.
Coffee ritual. Mine is largely independent of climate, except for the internal struggle of getting out of bed. But you're right, Mira. The climate isn't just a backdrop, it's the main character. In Bangladesh, the rivers are life, but also a constant threat during the monsoon. And in Guatemala, those beautiful mountains aren't just scenic, they dictate temperature and rainfall patterns, creating microclimates. It's like the land itself is a complex weather machine. Wow, no wonder people develop such unique ways of living.
Exactly. It makes you think about our lives, doesn't it? We complain about a little rain, and these countries are dealing with monsoons and volcanoes. Oops. It really puts things into perspective. So whether you're navigating the watery streets of Dhaka or enjoying the eternal spring in Antigua, Guatemala, both places offer a profound lesson in living with nature's full, dramatic force. It's not just about the weather, it's about the dance between humans and their environment. Wow. Speaking of places that make your taste buds do a happy dance, let's look at food culture and nutritional alternatives. Oh, Bangladesh's food scene is so vibrant, it's like a culinary kaleidoscope. Wow. Rice is king, like everywhere's that cousin who shows up to every family gathering.
Right. And apparently, that cousin also brings a lot of fish curry. I imagine if you don't like fish, you'd have to develop some serious stealth skills to navigate a Bengali kitchen. I'm certain our listeners living there can relate.
Oh, come on, Neo. You're always focusing on the one thing. There's dull lentils, which are like the warm, comforting hug of a food. Ah, and the piethas. Those sweet or savory rice cakes. They're not just food. They're a tiny edible art project. Ooh. They truly make every celebration feel special.
I'm sure they do. Or shaking their heads at my fish comment. But you know, I always wonder about the nutritional alternatives part in these places. Is it just eat what's available? Or do they have clever ways to diversify?
That's where it gets interesting. Traditional Bengali diets, while rice heavy, also use a lot of fresh vegetables and herbs. Plus, there's growing awareness for healthier choices, even if it's just swapping out some of that delicious ghee for something lighter. It's a balance of tradition and modern health consciousness.
Right, so not just a culinary heritage, but also a nutritional evolution. Wow. I bet Jadafe I could even plot out a healthy food tour for these places for anyone looking for specific dietary needs.
And speaking of diverse tastes, sliding over to Guatemala. Their cuisine is built on corn and black beans, like the dynamic duo of the culinary world. Oh, think tortillas fresh off the kernel, nothing beats that.
Corn and beans. Sounds like my emergency camping rations, but probably much, much tastier. And more colorful too, I hope. Because my camping food is usually just beige and regret.
Oh, it got peppy and a rich, spicy, kaki cake. That incredible turkey soup. They're not just meals, they're like a warm embrace from the kitchen. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this, especially if they've tried these dishes. If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments.
Speaking of warm embraces, I hope those stews don't come with too much sudden spice surprise, like some of your cooking mirror. But seriously, the fresh produce there, avocados, mangos, plantains, it's like a nutritionist's dream. People can find natural alternatives without even trying. Wow!
Exactly. It's nature's own health store. And Guatemala's indigenous knowledge often incorporates traditional herbs and plants for wellness. It's not just about what you eat, but what grows around you. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments if you've discovered any amazing natural food solutions in your travels.
Ah, the wisdom of the land. Unlike my wisdom, which mostly comes from too much coffee. I mean, how do they even make those Orellan at OS? Those sweet plantain dumplings. It sounds like dessert for champions.
They're incredible, and for street food, Guatemala has tostadas crispy tortillas with toppings. Simple, yet so satisfying. Oh, it's a testament to how creative people get with what's locally available, turning humble ingredients into something fantastic.
Indeed. Unlike some places where street food is just an excuse to eat something questionable on a stick. But in both countries, it sounds like there's a real emphasis on fresh, local ingredients, which is fantastic for nutritional value.
Absolutely, from Bangladesh's fresh fish and vegetables to Guatemala's corn and tropical fruits. Both offer diverse and flavorful ways to nourish yourself. You know, if you ever plan a trip just for the food, our friends at Just for the Food, our friends at Just Ofay, I can help you map out the perfect culinary adventure that matches your tastes and dietary needs.
Sounds like a plan. Just make sure there's a coffee shop every 5 feet in that plan. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube if you're enjoying our little global food tour. It helps us keep the microphones on the coffee brewing.
Yes, click that button. It helps us bring more delicious insights your way. Oh, because exploring cultures through their food is just the best way to travel without leaving your chair, right? You get all the flavor, none of the jet lag.
Unless you spill your virtual kaki on your actual pants. Then you're traveling straight to the dry cleaner.
Alright, Leo, let's dive into something. I absolutely adore the historical, cultural, and artistic values of Bangladesh and Guatemala. Wow, just thinking about centuries of stories makes my brain do a little happy dance.
A happy dance for old stones and textiles. You're really something, Mira. But I'll admit, these places do have a way of clinging to their past, which is interesting. It's like they're saying, yeah, we've been here a while. Deal with it. Oh, let's start with Bangladesh, shall we? This nation has seen so much, from ancient kingdoms to fierce fights for independence. It's not just a country, it's a testament to resilience.
Absolutely. Bangladesh, or Bengal as it was known, has such a rich tapestry. Think about the Bengal Sultanate, then the Mughals, and of course, the British colonial period. Then the incredible story of Earning Moment in 71. A truly defining moment. It's like their history is painted with bold, vibrant strokes. Aha! And their language Bengali is at the heart of their identity. The language movement of 1952, where people died for their right to speak Bengali, that's powerful.
You know, it's funny how a language can become a battleground. Oh, I always find it fascinating how deep that cultural root goes. Speaking of roots, their folk traditions are something else. Have you seen the Nax Haikanthi embroidery? It's storytelling stitched into fabric. Whoa! And ball music. It's not just music, it's a philosophy. It makes you think, are these guys secretly stand-up philosophers? Jadafe loves uncovering stories like this. And so Duel, it's not just about booking flights, it's about connecting with the soul of a place.
And then you have their vibrant rickshaw art talk about street art before it was cool. Well, every rickshaw is a moving canvas, bursting with color and local scenes. It's like the city itself is an art gallery. I wonder if our YouTube audience would appreciate a rickshaw art to video. I'm curious about what our listeners think about this, actually.
Rickshaw? I once saw a rickshaw that looked like it was powered by a unicorn, I swear. It certainly adds a certain chaotic charm to the streets. Now on the other side of the world, we have Guatemala. When I think of Guatemala, my mind immediately jumps to the ancient Mayans. Wow. Their civilization, their pyramids, Tikal is mind-blowing. It's a place where you stand and think. Yep, humans were doing some wild stuff way before Wi-Fi.
Tikal is just breathtaking. And Antigua, Guatemala, with its colonial architecture, it's like stepping back in time. Oh, the preserved cobblestone streets and colorful buildings. Surrounded by volcanoes, it's almost unreal. It reminds you how deeply history intertwines with natural beauty. You know, Josofea has some amazing content on places like that, helping you explore beyond just the obvious.
Yes, Antigua is gorgeous, though. I did once try to order a coffee there, and it felt like I'd stumbled into a time warp. The barista looked at me like I'd asked for a spaceship. Oops, but seriously, Guatemala's culture is so rich with its indigenous Mayan influence. Their traditional textiles, the huapiles, are incredible. Each one tells a story, a pattern unique to a village or family. It's not just clothing, it's wearable history.
Oh, Leo, you and your coffee stories. But you're right about the huapiles. The marimba music, it's so lively and distinctive, isn't it? And their spiritual practices, like those around Lake Catalent, where Mayan traditions are still very much alive. It's a deep, beautiful connection to their roots that many countries have lost. Wow.
It is. I mean, they still do ceremonies rooted in ancient calendars. You can literally walk through history there. It's not just look at this old thing, it's this old thing is still being used. Their colonial religious art is also fascinating, a blend of European and indigenous styles. It's like the artists were saying, we'll paint your saints, but they're gonna have a little local flavor too. We encourage our listeners to check out the details on Jet Off AI for more on these cultural gems.
That fusion of influences is what makes both countries so unique, don't you think? Like in Bangladesh, the terracotta art, it's so ancient, yet still relevant. And their modern art movement is very distinct. Or in Guatemala, the naive art, so colorful and direct. It's a testament to the fact that art finds a way, no matter the circumstances. Oh.
Agreed. Both places are like open-air museums, as you said earlier, Mira. But Bangladesh perhaps offers a more intense narrative of struggle and rebirth, where even the language itself is a monument. Whereas Guatemala, with its Mayan legacy, feels like it's guarding secrets from millennia past. It's hard to pick one, isn't it? Both offer a profound journey into human history and creativity. Wow. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're enjoying this deep dive.
Absolutely, Leo. It really highlights how diverse our world is. I think what's truly amazing is how both countries, despite their challenges, have fiercely held onto their cultural identities and expressed them through art and traditions. It's inspiring. Let's move on to this topic, where we compare the natural beauties and landscapes of two countries that might surprise you. From stunning mountains to serene coastlines and rare ecosystems, we're diving into their scenic wonders. Are you ready, Leo? I got a feeling one of these countries is going to have you reaching for your hiking boots.
Hiking boots, Mirror? You know my relationship with early morning nature excursions is more of a reluctant truce. Aha! But for our listeners, I'll endure. Today we're exploring Bangladesh and Guatemala's natural treasures. I'm certain our listeners living in these countries would agree with me. This is going to be a fun one. Bangladesh, with its endless river deltas, always makes me think of an over-enthusiastic watery embrace.
An over-enthusiastic. Watery embrace, that's one way to put it. Wow, Bangladesh, often called the land of rivers, truly is a unique tapestry of waterways. Oh, we're talking about the Ganges Delta, which is one of the largest in the world. Imagine countless rivers winding through lush green fields, creating a landscape that shifts with the seasons. It's like nature's own ever-changing painting. And speaking of nature's wonders.
The Sundarbans. The Sundarbans are the world's largest single block of tidal mangrove forest. It's so dense, I imagine the trees are constantly asking each other, "Are you sure we're not too close?" And it's home to the Royal Bengal tiger. Wow. I always pictured myself sneaking through the mangroves, pretending to be a wildlife photographer, only to trip over a root and send every creature running. Oops. Though, honestly, if I saw a tiger, my first reaction would be, how fast can I run?
You'd probably turn it into a stand-up bit about your escape strategy, wouldn't you? But seriously, the Sundarbans are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, crucial for biodiversity. And then there's Cox's Bazar, which boasts the longest natural sea beach in the world. Wow, it's like the ocean just decided to stretch out for a really long nap. Ooh, do you think you prefer a quiet stroll there or trying to teach a crab to do a little dance?
I'd probably get pinched trying to teach it. Ouch, but the sheer scale of Cox's Bazar is impressive. I mean, how many ice cream vendors does it take to cover the longest beach in the world? I'm genuinely curious about what our listeners think about that. You can let us know in the comments on YouTube, folks. And while you're there, maybe give us a like if you're enjoying our geographical musings. Now, from the low-lying river deltas of Bangladesh, let's jet off to the land of volcanoes and ancient Mayan mysticism.
Whoa, transition master. Guatemala is absolutely breathtaking, isn't it? Oh, forget flat landscapes here. The earth practically reaches for the sky with its volcanoes. Well, Lake Catalent, for instance, is often called one of the most beautiful lakes in the world, surrounded by 3 majestic volcanoes. It's so picturesque. It looks like a painting you could just step into. I almost feel like I could meditate there and find all the answers to the universe.
Answers to the universe, huh? I'd probably just be wondering where to find the nearest coffee stand after climbing one of those volcanoes. You hike up a volcano, you see an incredible sunrise, and then your legs remind you that you're not as young as you think. Ouch. But really, the dramatic landscapes around Lake Avalanche, with those traditional Mayan villages dotting the shores, it's a sight to behold. It's like history and nature decided to have a long, beautiful chat.
They really did. And speaking of conversations, Guatemala also has vast rainforests, especially in the Piton region, which is home to the ancient Mayan city of Tikal. Wow. Imagine colossal pyramids and ruins emerging from the dense jungle. It's like Mother Nature built the ultimate escape room, and the prize is ancient history. Oh, I'm certain many of our listeners would be thrilled to explore that.
I can picture it leaning against a 1,000-year-old ruin, scrolling through my phone and then realizing, oops, I should probably be appreciating this more. But the idea of those grand structures being reclaimed by the jungle, that's some serious Indiana Jones vibe right there. It truly showcases nature's power. And honestly, it makes me appreciate the effort the ancient Mayans put into building all that without heavy machinery. Whoa, they certainly didn't have Jet Fei to help them plan their construction projects.
No, they probably relied on sheer determination and maybe some very strong coffee. Ooh, so on one hand, you have Bangladesh's gentle, watery, green expanse, and on the other, Guatemala's dramatic volcanic peaks and dense, historical jungles. Two very different, yet equally captivating forms of natural beauty.
A lullaby or a symphony, I like that. It's definitely a tough choice. Though, if I had to pick, I think I'd lean towards the country that offers the most opportunities to trip over my own feet in a dramatically amusing way for future stand-up material. And if you're out there listening and you visited either of these places, don't forget to tell us on YouTube's comment section about your most memorable natural beauty moment. We love hearing your stories.
Alright, so we've just talked about the climate in Bangladesh and Guatemala, which makes me think, how do people move in all that heat or rain? I'm picturing some wild sports, right, Leo?
Wild is one way to put it, Mira, especially when you're talking about kabaddi in Bangladesh. People chasing each other around a court, chanting it's like a full contact poetry slam.
Oh, kabaddi! I've seen videos. It looks like a dance, a chase, and a strategy game all rolled into one. I'd totally try it. Maybe I'd wear my rainbow-colored leggings.
I'm sure the local teens would be thrilled. Just make sure you don't accidentally join a pro match thinking it's a flash mob. Oops. On a more serious note, Bangladesh's love for cricket is almost religious. It's not just a game, it's a national obsession.
Wow, I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would agree with me. Cricket brings people together, right? Like a big, noisy, beautiful family gathering. And speaking of gathering, what about outdoor adventures there, beyond the fields?
Well, beyond the pitches, Bangladesh isn't exactly scaling Everest, but they do have their own kind of adventure. Think serene river cruises through the Sundarbans, perfect for spotting a tiger if you're lucky, or unlucky depending on your perspective. I'm picturing myself chilling with a coffee on a boat, making notes for my next stand-up.
Oh, hey tiger, that sounds thrilling. And a bit scary. I'd be ready to jump in the water if one showed up. But Guatemala now, that's a country for adventurers, wouldn't you say? Volcanoes, lakes, it sounds like a giant playground.
You're right, Mira. Guatemala takes the adventure cake and eats it too. Volcano trekking, for instance. People actually climb active volcanoes like Pakewaye just to roast marshmallows over the lava. Whoa! I mean, I'm all for Seamers, but that's taking dedication to a new level. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Would you brave the lava for a perfectly toasted marshmallow? Let us know in the comments, especially on YouTube.
Wow, roasting marshmallows on a volcano, that's a story for the grandkids. I'd bring a giant bag of them. And Lake Catalan looks absolutely stunning. Kayaking, paddleboarding, it's like the water is inviting you to play. Oh, do you think you'd try paddleboarding, Leo? Or would you be worried about falling in?
Huh? Falling in? Mira, I'm more worried about losing my coffee. But seriously, the range of activities in Guatemala is impressive. Whitewater rafting, ziplining through cloud forests. It's not for the faint of heart, or for those who prefer their adventures to involve a comfortable chair and a good book. I'm looking at you, May.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the extreme stuff, right? Both countries have people who embrace active lifestyles in simpler ways, like cycling through villages or just taking long walks. It's about connecting with the land and the culture.
You hit the nail on the head. Whether it's the roar of the crowd at a cricket match in Dhaka or the rush of adrenaline on a zip line near Antigua, both Bangladesh and Guatemala offer unique ways to get the blood pumping. Or at least make you break a sweat. Oh, Don't forget to visit Jetafe. For more travel insights and planning tips, we talk about how to prep for these adventures too.
And if you like this conversation, give us a like and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. It helps us keep bringing you these fun comparisons. Because after all, life's an adventure, and so is this podcast.
Just remember, whether you're dodging a Kabaddi raid or a lava flow, always prioritize good stories. And good coffee.
Well, since we were just talking about embracing cultural differences, let's dive into something that truly shows a country's pulse, its nightlife and entertainment venues. Today, we're taking you on a journey to Bangladesh and Guatemala. Oh.
Mira, you're always ready to get your dance shoes on, aren't you? I can just picture you trying to start a salsa party in a quiet Dhaka tea house. Oops, but seriously, these two countries offer quite the contrast when the sun goes down.
Oh, Leo, you know I can make a party happen anywhere. But, you're right, Bangladesh, for instance, isn't exactly known for its booming club scene like some Western cities. Nightlife there often revolves around more social, family-friendly gatherings or quiet evenings at cafes. It's less about loud music and flashing lights, and more about conversation and community.
That's true. My observations in Dhaka pointed more towards restaurants staying open late, or maybe some hidden spots if you know a local. You'd find more people enjoying lively conversations over a traditional meal rather than hitting up a packed dance floor. It's a different kind of buzz, isn't it? More of a gentle hum than a full-on rock concert. I'm curious what our listeners living in Bangladesh experience. Do you guys agree, or have you found a secret technotum somewhere?
A techno tomb, Leo? Whoa. I'm certain our listeners on YouTube would love to comment on that. But seriously, when you look at Guatemala, it's a completely different rhythm, especially in tourist hubs like Antigua or Guatemala City. Oh, you're talking about vibrant salsa clubs, live Latin music, and bars that stay open much later.
Absolutely. Guatemala really comes alive at night. Wow, you'll find places where people are genuinely dancing, not just swaying. I saw a group of elderly ladies out dancing people half their age in Antigua one night. That's real commitment to entertainment. It's got that lively, warm Latin American vibe, where music isn't just background noise, it's part of the fabric of the evening.
That's what I love. Oh, so if you're picturing your night out with bright saris and Bollywood-style dancing, Bangladesh might offer cultural performances or perhaps a local wedding you might stumble upon. But if you want to lose yourself in a proper salsa beat until the early hours, Guatemala is definitely calling your name.
Or if you're like me, you find a quiet corner, order a double espresso, and just observe the madness. That's my kind of entertainment. Oops, but yes, the energy is undeniable in Guatemala. In Bangladesh, it's more about coffee shops with friends. Maybe a game of carrom board. The entertainment is more personal, more intimate.
Speaking of personal, I found some lovely traditional music venues in Bangladesh where folk songs would be played. It's captivating, a very soulful experience that really connects you to the local culture. It's not about being loud, it's about being deeply felt. Well, on the other hand, Guatemala often has marimba bands playing, which is their national instrument. It's like comparing a gentle lullaby to a lively fiesta, wouldn't you say?
A lively fiesta where I'd probably trip over my own feet trying to dance. Ouch. But I do appreciate the live music aspect in both, even if one is more subdued. It truly gives you a sense of the local artistry. And for those of you trying to decide which vibe suits your evening plans, think about what you're really looking for. Do you want to chat quietly, or move your hips without judgment?
Exactly. So, whether you're looking for a quiet, reflective evening in Dhaka, perhaps enjoying some street food that comes alive at night, or if you're yearning for a vibrant, energetic dance floor in Guatemala, both countries offer their unique flavor of after-hours experience. Oh, and hey, for more insights and travel tips, Don't forget to check out Jetoff AI. They're supporting this whole adventure, allowing us to bring you these comparisons.
That's right. And if you like this comparison, hit that like button on YouTube and share your thoughts in the comments. We're always trying to cook up new content, sometimes even with a pinch of absurd humor, you know.
Yes, definitely. Your feedback fuels our crazy ideas. Alright, so since we were just talking about how much energy it takes to even think about planning a trip, let's look at this topic of family, friendly environments, and children's activities. Because, let's be real, traveling with kids is a whole different ballgame. Wow.
Oh, Mirror. I swear you're already picturing yourself in a brightly colored dress, chasing a flock of pigeons with a child's toy. But you're right. It's crucial for anyone with little ones, or even if you just like places where joy yelling at you. Let's talk about Bangladesh and Guatemala.
You know, when I think of Bangladesh, the first thing that comes to mind is the incredible sense of community and family bonds. Ooh, children are truly the heart of the home there, surrounded by so many relatives. It's like every street is an extension of their living room, and everyone is an honorary aunt or uncle. Imagine the endless supply of people to play with.
I can just imagine the chaos. While that warmth is definitely there, Bangladesh's urban centers, like Dhaka, are incredibly dense. So outdoor play often happens in local parks, which can get pretty crowded. It's less about sprawling green spaces and more about finding joy in smaller, bustling corners. Though, to be fair, they managed to make a game out of almost anything. I once saw a kid playing soccer with a rolled-up newspaper into bricks as goalposts. Wow, ingenuity, right?
Exactly. It's about that resourcefulness and adapting. Ooh. And when it comes to activities, children in Bangladesh often enjoy simple, traditional games, kite flying, or storytelling. There's also a growing number of indoor play zones and shopping malls for a more modern experience. Plus, let's not forget the incredible street food, though maybe not for the very little ones.
Speaking of sensory feasts, Guatemala offers a different kind of vibrant tapestry for families. Wow, think more wide open spaces, volcanoes as backdrops to playgrounds, and ancient Mayan ruins that double as epic hide-and-seek spots. You're less likely to find a giant indoor trampoline park, but you'll find nature's own adventure park.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. So, it's more about embracing the outdoors. Oh, I can picture families hiking around Lake Atulent or exploring Antigua's cobblestone streets. Guatemala's culture is so rich, and kids are often involved in local festivals and traditions from a young age. That's a beautiful way to grow up, immersed in history. Wow.
Absolutely. For outdoor fun, there are plenty of national parks, coffee plantations offering tours that kids find fascinating. And, of course, the vibrant local markets. They're a whirlwind of colors and sounds. I'm certain that our listeners who've explored Guatemala will agree. Then as for family support, Guatemalan culture is also very family-centered, with strong community ties, much like Bangladesh.
Well, since we mentioned that, what about programs or infrastructure specifically designed for kids? Like dedicated children's museums or educational centers? I know these countries have different levels of development, but every nation has its unique approach.
That's a great point. In Bangladesh, educational initiatives often focus on foundational learning. And while there aren't many large-scale children's museums like you'd find in, say, New York, there are community-based learning centers and a huge emphasis on traditional arts and crafts. Oh, it's less about a grand institution and more about informal, hands-on learning within the community.
More organic learning. I like that. I bet kids in Bangladesh have amazing imaginations, turning everyday objects into fantastical toys. And what about safety? Are there specific considerations for families with young children in either country?
In Bangladesh, especially in busy cities, street safety is a primary concern. Traffic can be overwhelming, so vigilance is key. However, within neighborhoods and family compounds, there's a strong collective watchfulness over children. It's like everyone's a temporary guardian.
Oh, and For Guatemala? I imagine the cities might have different challenges than the rural areas, right?
Indeed. In Guatemala's larger cities, general precautions against petty crime are advised, as with any urban area worldwide. But in smaller towns and rural communities, the pace is much slower, and the community watch is very strong. Plus, the emphasis on outdoor activities means kids are often out and about, playing freely in natural settings. You're more likely to worry about a kid tripping on a tree root than something more sinister.
So, if our listeners are thinking of visiting either Bangladesh or Guatemala with their families, it sounds like Bangladesh offers a deep dive into community-based play and traditional joys, while Guatemala provides a more adventurous, nature-focused experience. Wow. It really depends on what kind of family adventure you're seeking.
Yeah, just remember in Bangladesh, pack light clothes that can withstand a few mystery stains from enthusiastic play. And in Guatemala, maybe some good hiking shoes for the little ones who insist on climbing every single ancient step. Oh, if you're a parent, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Which countries vibe aligns more with your family's chaos, joy? Let us know in the comments. We love hearing your travel tales. And you can also check out more detailed guides on Jeddah Fair.
And hey, while you're down there typing, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Oh, it helps us bring you more of these conversations, and who knows, maybe it'll even make your day a little brighter. Just like finding a hidden playground.
Or avoiding a puddle of spilled juice.
Speaking of connecting with different traditions, let's look at a topic that often sparks conversation when we talk about society's evolution. We're diving into the LGBT-friendly atmosphere in Bangladesh and Guatemala. It's a spectrum, not a simple on-off switch.
Oh, yes, a spectrum indeed. Like trying to find a perfectly neutral coffee bean that doesn't lean too much one way or the other. You're right, it's never simple, especially when you're talking about legal frameworks versus daily life on the ground.
Exactly. So, let's start with Bangladesh. From a legal standpoint, it still carries a colonial-era law, Section 377, which criminalizes same-sex sexual activity. Ouch. That's a pretty heavy cloud hanging over things, wouldn't you say?
Heavy cloud is putting it mildly. It's like having a no fun allowed sign hanging permanently over a party that hasn't even started. But it's not the full story, is it? You have a Hira community recognized as a third gender, which is quite unique in South Asia.
Absolutely. The Hira community has a deeply historical and cultural presence, often involved in ceremonies and blessings. They're recognized by the government as a third gender, which is a huge step in terms of identity, even if it's not the same as Western LGBT recognition. It's like their own unique rainbow, even if it's a different shade.
A unique shade, yes. But if you're not part of the Hira community, it's a very different landscape. Social acceptance for gay, lesbian, or bisexual individuals outside of that specific identity can be incredibly challenging. It's a bit like having a VIP section at a concert, but then everyone else is stuck outside in the rain. Ouch!
That's true, Leo. In mainstream society, open expressions of LGBT identity are largely taboo. However, you do see some emerging, albeit quiet, online communities and advocacy groups, especially among younger, more liberal populations in urban centers like Dhaka. They're like little digital sparks trying to light up the night.
Sparks, indeed. Very tiny sparks compared to the bonfires we see in other parts of the world. It's a slow burn, if you will. Speaking of slow burns, let's look at Guatemala. No colonial era laws quite like Bangladesh, but also no specific legal protections for LGBT individuals. It's more of a legal vacuum, really.
A vacuum can be tricky, right? It means there aren't laws against, but there aren't laws for either. This can lead to discrimination in employment, housing, or even public services because there's no legal recourse. Ouch. It's like playing a game without any rules.
Or with really vague rules that only some people understand. Interestingly, Guatemala City, being the capital, has a more visible, albeit still discreet, LGBT scene compared to rural areas. you'll find a few gay-friendly bars and community spaces. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Especially if you've been there. Let us know in the comments on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a quiet hum rather than a booming bass. While there aren't large, public pride parades on the scale of, say, New York, there are smaller, community-lead events that often happen more privately.
Right. It's about navigating the unspoken rules. In both countries, family and religious values play a huge role, which can create significant pressure for individuals who don't conform to traditional norms. It's not just about what the law says, but what your Annie says.
Or what the neighborhood gossip says. But, despite the challenges, there's always incredible resilience and strength within these communities. They find ways to connect, support each other, and advocate for change. Wow, it reminds us that humanity's spirit for acceptance truly is unstoppable.
Unstoppable, yes, but sometimes it feels like it's trying to push a very large boulder uphill. You'll see organizations, often small and locally funded, working tirelessly for human rights. They're the unsung heroes, really. It's important for our audience to be aware of these nuances if they're considering travel or residence. You can always check Jeddah for more detailed social climate notes on these places.
Absolutely, knowledge is power. So, while both Bangladesh and Guatemala have significant ground to cover in terms of full LGBT equality and acceptance, there's also quiet progress in vibrant communities making their voices heard one step at a time. Oh, it's like a marathon, not a sprint.
A very long, often unlit marathon. But with people cheering from the sidelines, even if they're whispering. So if you're watching this on YouTube, let us know your thoughts on how different cultures approach these sensitive social issues. Your comments help us understand diverse perspectives.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys sharing your insights. And if you like this conversation and want us to keep exploring these kinds of topics, please give us a like and subscribe. Oh, it truly helps us bring more of these discussions to you.
It's like a small clap for Mira's endless optimism. And my cynical observations.
Well, since we were just talking about cultural nuances, let's dive into something I always find fascinating: hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners. Well, every country has its own unique embrace, and today we're comparing Bangladesh and Guatemala. I've heard incredible things about the warmth in Bangladesh. It's almost like they have a universal welcome home sign painted on their hearts.
Welcome home, Mira. I'm picturing myself being adopted by 5 different families before I even find my hotel room. But seriously, Bangladesh, huh? From what I've heard, their hospitality isn't just a trait, it's practically a sport. You walk in, and suddenly you're part of the family, whether you like it or not. Ooh, I'm certain that our listeners who have experienced it can confirm you're not leaving a Bangladeshi home without eating enough for 3 people.
You're right, Leo. It's like they take guest as God to a whole new level. Aha! I heard a story once about a traveler who just asked for directions, and before he knew it, he was sitting down to a full meal, being introduced to every cousin and uncle within a 10-mile radius. Well, and they genuinely mean it. It's not just politeness, it's a deep-rooted cultural value. For them, every visitor is a blessing.
Sounds like a strategic move for a perpetual free meal seeker. Just wander around looking slightly lost, and boom variety on demand. But does it ever get to be? A lot. Like, how do you politely say, "Thank you for the 5 servings of rice, but my stomach is currently staging a protest." Ouch. It's that beautiful cultural clash, isn't it? My observational skills tell me there's a fine line between welcoming and overwhelming.
That's where the beauty lies, Leo, learning to navigate that lovely intensity. It's true. Sometimes it can be overwhelming for those not used to such close-knit interactions, but it always comes from a place of genuine care. Speaking of warmth, let's look at Guatemala. It's a different kind of welcome, perhaps a bit more reserved at first, but incredibly sincere. Ooh.
Right, Guatemala. Less immediate adoption, more, let's see if you're cool first. I imagine the initial greeting is less about force-feeding you and more about a polite nod. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you prefer the full-on embrace, or a gradual warm-up? Because my introverted side occasionally screams for personal space.
Aha! Exactly. In Guatemala, especially with the indigenous communities, once you've shown respect for their culture and perhaps tried a few phrases in Spanish or one of the local languages, the door is truly open. Well, their hospitality grows from connection and mutual respect. It's less about showering you with everything and more about sharing their rich heritage. Oh, it's a more gentle, yet equally profound welcome. Ah,
So, less unsolicited variety, more meaningful glances. Got it. It's like, prove you're not going to make fun of our traditions, and then we'll show you the good stuff. My stand-up routine usually involves making fun of everything, so I might need to tone that down a notch. Oops. Maybe I'd start with a self-deprecating joke to break the ice.
that's probably a good strategy, Leo. People appreciate effort and sincerity. In both countries, what really makes a difference is showing genuine interest in their way of life, trying a few local words, and being open to new experiences. It's about building those bridges across cultures, isn't it? Ooh. I mean, who doesn't want to make new friends when traveling?
Absolutely. And that's where the real magic happens, right? When you stop being just a foreigner and become Leo, the guy who tried to dance salsa and failed spectacularly. It's about finding common ground, even if it's just shared laughter over a cultural faux pas. For all of you out there listening on YouTube, if you've got a funny story about being welcomed or maybe a little too welcomed in Bangladesh or Guatemala, please share it in the comments below. We love hearing your adventures.
Yes, definitely comment your stories. We're always looking for new material for our travel mishaps and miracles segment. And don't forget to like this episode if you're enjoying our banter about cross-cultural connections. It helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into global cultures, especially with the support of Jet Off AI, who believe in these conversations as much as we do.
And if you think Mira's right about everything, well, you're probably just being polite. But hey, that's fine too. We embrace all perspectives here.
You know, Leo, when we talk about internet infrastructure and digital facilities, my brain immediately goes to, can I upload my dance videos without buffering? It's wild to think how much our lives depend on a good signal these days.
Your dance videos, Mira. I'm more concerned if I can find a coffee shop with stable Wi-Fi to actually watch them without my screen freezing mid-pirouette. But seriously, looking at Bangladesh first, they've made huge strides in connecting their population.
They really have, especially with mobile internet. It's like everyone's carrying a miniature internet cafe in their pocket. I heard they're really pushing for this digital Bangladesh vision. It's so exciting to see a country embrace technology like that. Ooh.
Indeed. While mobile data is widespread, the fixed broadband infrastructure, especially in rural areas, still has some catching up to do. It's like having a super fast sports car, but only on certain highways. You might be cruising in Dhaka, but then hit a dirt road for connectivity in a village. I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would agree with me.
Oh, I totally get that. It's the same struggle you find in many developing nations. But the fact that they're even talking about smart cities and pushing e-commerce, that's already a huge leap. Imagine ordering a traditional Bangladeshi sari online and it arriving before you even finish your tea. Wow.
Or trying to troubleshoot your Wi-Fi from a rickshaw. Oops. Speaking of different landscapes, how about Guatemala? Their digital journey is definitely a different rhythm.
Guatemala. When I think of Guatemala, my mind pictures lush forests and ancient ruins, not necessarily fiber optic cables. But what I've learned is that mobile internet is the real hero there too. It's like their lifeline, connecting people across those beautiful, rugged terrains. Oh!
It is. While mobile internet is making inroads, especially in urban centers like Guatemala City, bridging the digital divide in rural, indigenous communities remains a significant challenge. It's a bit like searching for Wi-Fi in the middle of a Mayan ruin. You know the potential is there, but the signal might be hiding behind a pyramid.
You're not wrong. I can imagine the frustration. But that's where innovation really shines. If you're a digital nomad, thinking of setting up shop in either of these places, you definitely need to plan your accommodation meticulously. That's why platforms like Jet.ai are so crucial. They can help you find places with reliable connectivity before you even pack your bags.
Good point, Mira. It's not just about finding a place to stay, but a place where your digital life doesn't suddenly revert to dial-up speeds. Ouch! For Bangladesh, the e-commerce and mobile banking scene is booming, which is a clear sign of digital adoption, even with infrastructural quirks.
It's like, even if the road's a bit bumpy, everyone's still finding ways to drive their digital cars. Oh, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have you tried mobile banking in Bangladesh or streaming a movie in a remote part of Guatemala? Let us know in the comments section on YouTube.
I imagine some of them might have a story or two about buffering frustration, but the growth in tech-driven lifestyles is undeniable in both, even if their starting points and speeds differ. Guatemala's tech sector, while nascent, is growing, especially with startups in the capital. It's like a small, but determined digital seed pushing through the rich soil. Aha!
Wow, I love that analogy. It shows that even with challenges, the human spirit for connection always finds a way. From smart cities to digital nomad hubs, both countries are powering modern living in their own unique ways. I'm always amazed by how much progress is being made. Oh.
Definitely. They both demonstrate that internet infrastructure isn't just about cables and towers, it's about people's ingenuity and finding ways to connect. And sometimes the stories of overcoming those connectivity hurdles make for the best material.
Okay, Liu. Speaking of vibrant experiences, let's dive into shopping opportunities and the ultimate price-performance balance. I guess a little thrill just thinking about browsing through unique local markets. Oh, I mean, who doesn't love a good bargain, right? Especially if it involves a little bit of playful haggling.
Haggling, huh? Haggling, huh? I call it a full-contact sport, Mira. My wallet usually ends up losing, but I gain some serious comedic material. Let's see how Bangladesh and Guatemala fare in this retail arena. I'm betting one involves a lot of fabric and the other a lot of coffee. And I'm here for both, just for different reasons.
But seriously, Bangladesh, for anyone who loves textiles, it's like a dream. Wow, especially their ready-made garment industry is huge. You can find export surplus shops everywhere, and it's incredible how many brands we work come from there. It's like finding treasure chests of clothes for ridiculously good prices. Oh, I once bought what felt like a lifetime supply of t-shirts there.
A lifetime supply, you say? Sounds like something a hoarder would claim, Mira. Sounds like something a hoarder would claim, Mira. But I'll give you that. The ready-made garment industry in Bangladesh is no joke. You're talking about a country that dresses a significant chunk of the world, probably including half my wardrobe right now. It's a marvel of mass production, and if you know where to look, you can snag some serious value. I'm certain that our listeners who've been there will nod in agreement right now, probably thinking about their own bargain finds.
And it's not just the everyday clothes. Their traditional markets or bazaar-s are just bursting with color and life. Wow. Think spices, fresh produce, beautiful saris, and those incredible Naks high-canthi embroidered quilts. It's sensory overload in the best possible way. Oh, you could spend hours just wandering, soaking it all in, and probably accidentally buying a goat.
Buying a goat? Oops. That's a new one for the shopping list. But I agree. Those markets are a whirlwind. It's less about polite browsing and more about navigating a human river, where every stall owner is an expert negotiator. The price-performance balance there is phenomenal if you have the patience for the dance. And let's not forget the sheer ingenuity of their handicrafts. Jute products, pottery, It's all handmade and often ridiculously affordable compared to what you'd pay back home.
Oh, absolutely. The craftsmanship is amazing. So, moving on from Bangladesh's textile paradise, let's look at Guatemala. When I think of shopping there, my mind immediately jumps to their indigenous markets. Wow, Chichicastanco, for instance, isn't just a market, it's a cultural explosion. The vibrant textiles, the huapiles, those incredible wooden masks. Ooh. It's like walking into a living art gallery where everything is for sale.
You're right, Chichicastanco is legendary. Though my personal walking into a living art gallery experience usually involves someone trying to sell me a slightly sinister-looking wooden mask. But the quality of the weaving, the colors, the sheer variety of the crafts, it's genuinely impressive. And you can find some unique jade jewelry too, which is a nice touch, especially if you're trying to impress someone back home without breaking the bank.
Definitely. And speaking of things that impress, you can't talk about Guatemala without mentioning their coffee. The aroma, the rich flavor. Buying coffee beans, there is not just shopping, it's an experience. The price-performance balance for coffee is off the charts too. Oh, you get world-class quality at local prices. It's probably the only yo consistently enjoys buying.
Hey, don't knock a good bean, Mira. Amen needs his fuel. But you're spot on about the coffee. It's a no-brainer souvenir, and the quality is exceptional. Now, comparing that to, say, modern shopping in Guatemala City or Dhaka, it's a different ballgame. You've got your malls with international brands, but the price-performance balance there shifts back to what you'd expect in any global city. It's not where you're going to find those hidden gems or wild bargains.
True, the malls are more about convenience than quirky finds. But I think that's the beauty of both places, isn't it? You have these incredibly rich traditional markets for unique, affordable items, and then the modern centers if you just need, say, a phone charger or a specific brand of toothpaste. It caters to all kinds of shoppers. It makes me wonder if our listeners prefer the hustle and bustle of a local market or the air-conditioned calm of a mall.
I'm a bustle and quick exit kind of guy myself. Too much calm in a mall, and I start wondering if I've been abducted by aliens and put in a consumer prison. But really, both Bangladesh and Guatemala offer something distinct. Bangladesh, with its textile powerhouses and vibrant bazaars, and Guatemala, with its incredible indigenous artistry and world-renowned coffee. It's not just about what you buy, it's about the story behind it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that miss.
A boring receipt. You always find a way to make me laugh, Leo. But you're so right. It's the experience, the human connection, the little dogging that makes it memorable. Oh, whether you're finding a beautifully embroidered quilt in Dhaka or a hand-woven huipil in Chichicastancho, you're taking a piece of culture home. Aha! And if you want to explore more about these amazing countries, you can always head over to Jetofe AI for more details and travel guides.
Always the plug, Mira. But she's right, Jetofe AI is a great resource. For me, it boils down to this: if you want to shop till you literally drop from exhaustion in a market, Bangladesh might be your chaotic wonderland. If you prefer a slightly more curated cultural shopping experience, maybe with a fantastic coffee break, then Guatemala calls to you.
Alright, let's jump right into something that really gets my heart dancing: cultural events, festivals, and concert opportunities. We're talking Bangladesh and Guatemala today. And let me tell you, if you love vibrant colors and sounds, you're in for a treat. I always say, you haven't truly experienced a place until you sway to its local rhythm.
Until you've tried to sway and ended up tripping over your own feet like a newborn giraffe. But I agree, Mira. Festivals are where a country's true personality shines. It's like watching a giant, chaotic, beautiful human documentary unfold. For me, it's less about the swaying and more about observing who's trying too hard to sway. Oops.
Oh, come on, Leo. You have a rhythm in there somewhere, even if it's just the rhythm of your coffee maker in the morning. Anyway, but let's kick off with Bangladesh. Their biggest celebration has to be Pohela YTKH, the Bengali New Year. Wow. Imagine massive, colorful processions, especially the Mangal Shabiat Iyoi, which is even UNESCO recognized. It's a huge surge of joy, traditional music, and people just celebrating life.
I can picture it, thousands of people, all that energy. It must be a logistical nightmare for someone trying to get a decent coffee. But seriously, the Mangal Shaba Yacht ERA sounds visually striking. Is it like everyone's trying to outdo each other with artistic floats? Or is it more of a community's shared artistic expression? I'm actually curious what our listeners who've been there think. Comment below if you've seen it.
It's absolutely a community shared expression, Leo. Everyone gets involved, designing these incredible masks and sculptures. It's truly breathtaking. Oh, beyond that, you have Idol Fitr and Idol Adha, which are huge religious festivals that bring families together with delicious food and new clothes. Then there's Durga Puja for the Hindu community, with elaborate pandals. It's a non-stop party for your senses.
Non-stop party, got it. So, a place where my observational skills would be working overtime, trying to figure out if anyone's secretly complaining about their new clothes. Speaking of non-stop, let's shift gears to Guatemala. Here. It's famous for these incredible, intricate sawdust carpets. Alefo about Semana Santa, or Holy Week. It's famous for these incredible, intricate sawdust carpets, Alefo and brass, that people spend days creating, only for a procession to walk right over them.
Oh, the Aleppo and brass. They are absolutely stunning. I saw photos, and it's like a masterpiece on the street. Then poof, it's gone. It's such a beautiful tradition that combines devotion with incredible artistry. Ooh. And for something completely different, Guatemala also has the giant kite festivals for Day of the Dead in places like Zampango. Bariles is like Zampango. Barilet is gigants, these massive. Vibrant kites flying high in the sky. It's flying high in the sky.
Yeah, the giant kites always get me. Imagine the planning that goes into flying something the size of a small car. I bet there are always a few that just tangle themselves into an existential knot and plummet. For deeper dives into specific cultural trends or travel planning around these festivals, Jeddah AI has incredible resources, by the way. Just saying.
You're right, Leah. They definitely do. Moving on to music. Bangladesh has a rich tradition of folk music, especially Baul songs and Sufi music. It's very soulful, often played on instruments like the Dutera undecked era. It's mesmerizing. Oh! On the other hand, Guatemala's national instrument marimba, which creates such a unique, rhythmic sound. You hear it everywhere, from traditional gatherings to modern music. What to play the marimba, Leah?
My musical talent usually peaks at aggressively tapping my foot to a beat. But the marimba does sound like it could be very captivating. And I appreciate any country that embraces its unique sounds. Better than another generic pop concert, that's for sure. Though if I'm being honest, I'd probably still be looking for a quiet cafe to critique the local barista's latte art during a festival. You know, for material. Aha!
You're incorrigible, Leo. But their trees also have growing contemporary music scenes. In Bangladesh, pop and rock are popular. And in Guatemala City, you'll find a mix of Latin pop, salsa, and rock concerts. So, whether you're into traditional tunes or something more modern, there's a beat for everyone. Oh.
Exactly. Whether you're swaying to a ball song or trying to figure out a salsa step, there's always something to keep your senses engaged. Or at least, something to inspire a new joke. For more detailed insights into festival schedules and local music scenes, you know where to go. And if you like what you're hearing, don't forget to click that like button on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and we appreciate it. Oh,
Diving right into the brain gym, let's talk about languages, shall we? You know, the kind where your tongue feels like it's trying to tie itself in a knot just to say hello. It's like my attempts at cooking they start with good intentions and end with a mystery meal. Anyway, we're looking at the opportunities and ease of learning the local language in Bangladesh and Guatemala. I'm excited about this one.
Mira, you're making my mouth water with that mystery meal talk. I once tried to order coffee in a foreign language and ended up with a small fish. Aha! Never a dull moment, right? So Bangladesh and Guatemala. When we think about diving into a new language, it's not just about memorizing words, it's about seeing how many times you can embarrass yourself in public. For Bangladesh, we're talking about Bengali, or Bangla, as they say. For Guatemala, it's primarily Spanish, but there.
Wow, 20 indigenous languages. That's incredible. It's like a whole rainbow of communication, not just one color. Oh, when I think of learning Bengali, I imagine a script it's so beautifully intricate like a secret code. But also, from what I hear, it can be a bit of a dance for your vocal cords. I'm curious, for anyone listening in Bangladesh, what was your first word in Bengali? Share it with us in the comments on YouTube.
So I think that we can counter that. You're right, Mira. Bengali script can look like a piece of abstract art, which is great if you're an artist, less so if you're trying to read a street sign when you're late for a comedy show. The pronunciation, to it's got sounds that make an English speaker's tongue wonder if it's supposed to be doing gymnastics. English is actually fairly common in many professional and educational settings in Bangladesh, which gives you a bit of a language buffer. It's like having training wheels on a bicycle.
Training wheels, I love that. So it's not entirely sink or swim. But speaking of swimming with Guatemala, learning Spanish feels a bit more like diving into a clear, inviting pool. Spanish is widely taught, and for English speakers, the grammar and vocabulary often have familiar roots. I'm certain our listeners who studied Spanish would agree it feels less like an alien language and more like a friendly cousin. Ooh.
Friendly cousin who talks really, really fast, Mira. I've been in Central America, and sometimes it feels like they're just running all their words together in one long, beautiful, unintelligible stream. But you're right. There are tons of language schools in Guatemala, especially in places like Antigua. You can get pretty immersive lessons, sometimes even living with a local family. That's the fast track to sounding when they're poking fun at your accent.
Wow. Living with a local family is pure immersion. That's how you really understand the jokes and the little nuances. I'd probably accidentally learn how to make an amazing tamale before I mastered the subjunctive tense, but hey, priorities, right? I think for anyone considering it, those schools are a huge opportunity. Do you guys agree that living with a family is the ultimate language hack? This is No One Joke, of FAI Podcast.
I agree. It's effective, but also a chance for maximum comedic friction. Imagine trying to explain you accidentally puts alt in the coffee that's a story for the grandkids. But to swing back to Bangladesh, while formal language schools for Bengali might be less ubiquitous than Spanish schools in Guatemala, the daily immersion is real. You're constantly surrounded by it, which forces you to pick things up. It's less about structured classes and more about a cultural osmosis, like absorbing a language through your pores.
Oh, the panic method. I'm familiar with that one. It's very effective for finding the nearest bathroom. But truly, both countries offer such rich cultural immersion, which is probably the best language teacher of all. Even if you're just learning a few phrases, it opens so many doors. Ooh, whether it's thank you. In Bengali, or where's the best street food? In Spanish, every little bit counts. And if you're planning a trip, or even thinking of moving, resources on Jet Horses and Jetton's easier.
Absolutely, Mira. Every little phrase, every awkward attempt, it all adds up. And let's be honest, those awkward attempts often make the best stories for later. So, if you're thinking of picking up some Bengali or Spanish, don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. I do it for a living, and it works out just fine. You might find yourself accidentally ordering fish instead of coffee. But hey, you'll have a story, and maybe a new favorite snack.
Alright, so speaking of embracing new places, I was just thinking about how different cultures welcome people. And that brings us perfectly to our next topic, which is something so vital for anyone exploring the world's safety and comfort for women travelers. Especially when we're comparing countries like Bangladesh and Guatemala. I once almost joined a local dance in a small village. And let me tell you, my moves were, shall we say, unique. But everyone was so kind, even when I tripped over my own feet.
Mira, I can just picture you mid-twirl suddenly embracing the ground. Oops, that's definitely one way to make an entrance. But you're right, it's a huge point. My observational skills kick in overdrive when I see women navigating unfamiliar streets. For Bangladesh, for instance, you'll immediately notice it's a predominantly conservative society. That means modest dress is generally expected, and while hospitality is truly legendary,
Absolutely. And it's not about restriction, right? It's about respecting the local customs and understanding the vibe. In Dhaka or urban areas in Bangladesh, you might find more modern approaches, but stepping into a rural village, you'd want to be mindful of how you present yourself. Oh, it's like wearing a neon pink sari to a traditional wedding you decent out, but maybe not in the way you hoped. I actually think that warmth and community focus can be a huge comfort, even if it's different from what you're used to.
Yeah, and that guest of God mentality in Bangladesh is genuine. But let's be real, even with that warmth, being an obvious foreigner, particularly a woman, can sometimes mean unwanted attention or staring. Not usually malicious, often just curiosity. I remember seeing a woman trying to buy street food, and she literally had a small crowd watching her eat. Whoa. It's something to be aware of, like keeping your phone in a front pocket, but for cultural reasons rather than just crime.
Oh, Guatemala. I just picture vibrant textiles and ancient ruins. Wow. It's true. While you get incredible hospitality there too, it feels different. Especially in tourist hubs like Antigua or Lake Atlant, you'll see many women traveling alone or in small groups. There's generally a more relaxed attitude towards Western dress. I'd say the biggest hazard there might be trying to resist buying every single beautifully woven scarf.
So, I think that we can conquer it. You're right, Mira, my backpack is already groaning just thinking about it. But when it comes to safety in Guatemala, particularly in bigger cities like Guatemala City, you do need to be more street smart than in, say, Antigua. Petty crime can be an issue. Public transportation, like those famously colorful chicken buses, can be an experience, but they require a certain level of awareness. Whoa, it's not a place to walk around with your phone dangling out of your back pocket.
Yeah, safety is always about common sense, right? Whether it's Bangladesh or Guatemala, sticking to well-lit areas, knowing where you're going, and being aware of your surroundings is universal. I always tell people, if your gut says no, don't go. It's totally curious about what our listeners who've traveled solo to either of these countries think about this. If you have tips or experiences, please let us know in the comments section on YouTube.
Exactly, that gut feeling is better than any map application. And speaking of maps on Jet Off AI, we often discuss how to research safe neighborhoods. For Guatemala, while those chicken buses are an experience, many women opt for shuttle services, especially for intercity travel, which offers an added layer of comfort and security. Oh, in Bangladesh, ride-sharing apps have become more popular in cities, providing a safer alternative to traditional rickshaws late at night.
In Bangladesh, it might be more about cultural immersion and blending in, while in Guatemala, it's about being aware of urban challenges, but enjoying a vibrant urban culture. Both offer incredible experiences for women, but the comfort comes from different places. In Bangladesh, it's the warm hospitality, and in Guatemala, it's perhaps the freedom to explore more independently in certain areas. Wow,
And whether you're navigating the bustling streets of Dhaka or the cobblestone alleys of Antigua, remember, a smile goes a long way. Though, Mira, I wouldn't recommend trying to teach the local vendors your Mira universal dance moves to get a discount.
hey, you never know, Leo. My puzzle look dance might be the next big thing. Oh, and if you think it's wrong to dance for discounts, please let us know in the comments. You know, Leo, when we talk about big topics like legal systems and individual rights, it almost sounds like something out of a very serious, very dusty textbook. But I think it's fascinating how different countries frame these fundamental ideas. It's like everyone has to be for justice, right? Some add a pinch of this, some a whole handful of that.
Yeah, a recipe for justice where sometimes the main ingredient is more paperwork. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries might agree with me when I say the recipe can often feel like a never-ending buffet of forms. But you're right, it's intriguing. Let's look at Bangladesh first, which operates on a common law system largely inherited from its British past.
Speaking of British past, I once tried to understand all the rules for a cricket match, and my brain felt like it was doing legal research. Oops. For Bangladesh, the constitution outlines a lot of individual rights, like freedom of speech and assembly. That sounds really promising on paper, doesn't it?
On paper, most things look great, Mira. Wow. It's like my travel itinerary perfect until I actually have to hail a taxi. The reality in Bangladesh, however, often faces challenges. We're talking about concerns around corruption in the judiciary, and let's not forget laws that can feel a bit restrictive, especially when it comes to freedom of expression. Remember the Digital Security Act? It's often criticized for chilling dissent.
Oh, that's not fun. It's not fun. It's like going to a party and someone telling you, you can dance. But I wonder, do people still find ways to voice their opinions, even with those restrictions? I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you guys feel like you can always speak freely in your own countries?
They certainly try, Mira. It's human nature to find a loophole, or at least a witty meme to express themselves. Though, sometimes that wit can come at a cost. Let's move across the globe, literally, and look at Guatemala, which leans into a civil law system, influenced by its Spanish colonial history.
Spanish influence. I love how they put so much passion into everything, even legal documents. Wow. Guatemala's constitution also has provisions for individual rights. It's great to see that common thread, right? That desire for liberty in different corners of the world. Ooh.
Indeed, but much like Bangladesh, Guatemala faces its own set of hurdles. Impunity is a huge issue there, that feeling that crimes aren't always punished, which really eats away at trust in the system. And unfortunately, organized crime can cast a long shadow over the legal process. It's not exactly a stroll through a flower garden for human rights defenders. Ouch.
That sounds incredibly tough. It's like trying to build a beautiful sandcastle, but the waves keep washing it away. Especially when it comes to indigenous rights and land disputes, there are a lot of challenges. It makes you think about how crucial a fair and functioning legal system is for everyday life, doesn't it?
Crucial, and often taken for granted until you're navigating a confusing one yourself. My personal experience with trying to get a visa for some random country felt like I was in a legal drama. But comparing both Bangladesh and Guatemala, they both grapple with this fundamental gap between what the law says and how it's applied on the ground. It's a universal puzzle, it seems.
It really is. It's like when you buy a fancy gadget, and the manual promises it can do everything, but then you try to use it, and you're just like, wait, where's the magic button? Aha. The good news is, both countries have seen efforts to improve things, with human rights commissions or attempts at judicial reform. It's a slow climb, but it's a climb.
A very slow climb, Mira. One step forward, 2 steps back, occasionally a sideways shuffle just to confuse everyone. But hey, credit where credit is due for the people who keep pushing. For anyone watching on YouTube right now, if you're feeling this conversation, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps us know you're here.
Yes, and if you think this is wrong, or if you have a story to share about legal systems in either of these countries, please let us know in the comments. We want to hear your experiences too. And while you're there, why not subscribe to our channel? It's like signing up for more delightful chaos.
And for all the nitty-gritty details on international legal frameworks and how they impact travel and life abroad, make sure to check out Jet Off AI. They've got the real deep dives that even I sometimes have to consult.
Jet Off AI, my personal Where's My Lawyer hotline for all things global. So, while both Bangladesh and Guatemala strive for justice and freedom, their journeys are unique, and the path to full implementation is clearly a winding one. It takes a lot of resilience from their citizens, doesn't it? Wow! Let's turn our focus to something everyone craves: spa, healthy living, and relaxation opportunities. Oh, it's all about finding that inner calm, isn't it? Bangladesh might not immediately spring to mind for luxury spas, but trust me, there's a deep-rooted tradition of wellness there. We're talking about ancient herbal remedies and a slower pace of life that's naturally rejuvenating.
Intercom, Mira. For some of us, intercom is just the 5 seconds between getting off a flight and realizing you've lost your luggage. But you're right. It's not all about fancy hot stone massages. When I think of traditional wellness, my mind immediately jumps to places like Guatemala, where ancient Mayan practices meet modern sensibilities. Wow, they've got these incredible TEM, AZ kale sweat lodges that are an experience. You know, for when you want to sweat out all your existential dread.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. Imagine a traditional Ayurvedic massage in Bangladesh, perhaps with warm herbal oils and a focus on balancing your doshas. Haha! It's not just about pampering, it's about holistic well-being. Plus, the food. Fresh, seasonal, and home-cooked is a healthy living secret in itself. It's like a natural detox every day with us. You guys agree with us? I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would nod along with this. Ooh.
A natural detox usually involves 3 espressos and a deep-fried snack. But that sounds genuinely appealing, Mira. In Guatemala, the healthy living scene is equally organic in the literal sense. You've got these vibrant local markets overflowing with fresh, organic to sowing with fresh, especially around places like Lake Adelant. And people are in places like Lake Adelant, these unique experiences. You've Got Off AI has some incredible itineraries that highlight these unique experiences. People aren't just eating clean, they're surrounded by nature.
Hiking a volcano for cardio? That sounds less like healthy living and more like a challenge you'd propose after too much coffee, Leo. But you're right. The natural beauty in Guatemala is stunning. In Bangladesh, the focus is less on extreme sports and more on community and simple pleasures. Think lazy afternoons at tea stalls, chatting with locals, or a serene boat ride through the Sundarbans. It's relaxation that seeps into your soul, making you forget all your worries, except maybe when you'll have your next cup of chai.
Chai always helps, Mira. But a boat ride through the Sundarbans. Sounds like a good spot to observe if any lurking tigers are also practicing their intercom. Seriously though, Guatemala also offers incredibly serene relaxation opportunities. Imagine staying at an ecologue by Lake Adelant, surrounded by volcanoes, practicing yoga as the mist rolls over the water. Wow. It's not just beautiful, it feels like the landscape itself is breathing. It's that kind of place where you might accidentally find yourself and then wonder yourself and then.
You'd never lose your sarcasm, Leo. It's part of your charm. But you're right. Both countries offer a unique flavor of relaxation. Bangladesh has these growing wellness centers in cities like Dhaka, usually attached to bigger hotels, offering modern spa treatments with a local touch. It's a blend of global luxury and traditional warmth. Ooh, they're definitely catching up, making wellness more accessible to everyone, not just the nature adventurers.
Catching up, eh? So, for our listeners, it's about choosing your wellness adventure. Do you prefer ancient practices in a gentle pace in Bangladesh? Or do you want to find your zen by scaling a mountain and sweating it out in a TEN? AEM is Cal in Guatemala. Both promise rejuvenation, but one might leave you slightly more out of breath.
Absolutely. And whether it's a quiet herbal treatment in Bangladesh or a misty yoga retreat in Guatemala, the goal is the same: to feel good in your own skin. We've talked about everything from traffic jams to finding a good deal on a hat. But let's shift gears to something a bit more, shall we say, soul-enriching. We're talking about opportunities for religious and spiritual needs. And honestly, it's not just about finding a church or a mosque, it's about connecting with something bigger, right? I once tried to meditate in a really loud market in Bangkok, and let me tell you, my spirit animal turned out to be a tuk-tuk driver yelling about a bargain.
Mira, you trying to find inner peace in a Bangkok market sounds like a setup for a comedy special. I can just picture it. And then, enlightenment hit me right after that durian vendor yelled 2 for 1. But you're right, this topic is important, especially for our listeners who seek out those unique spiritual vibes wherever they go. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Do you guys look for spiritual experiences when you travel? Or is it just me?
Oh, Bangladesh. It's truly a vibrant tapestry of beliefs, wouldn't you say? Wow, it's predominantly Muslim, so you'll find mosque and dopa, which is just breathtaking. But what's truly beautiful is how many other faiths thrive there too. You have a significant Hindu population, so temples are a common sight, full of color and life during festivals. And then there are Buddhist monasteries and Christian churches dotting the landscape. It's like a whole buffet of spiritual architecture.
A spiritual buffet. I like that. Though, I'd probably still be trying to figure out if I can get an extra side of prayer beads with my main course. It's true. The sheer number of places of worship is quite something. You see these ancient mosques standing next to busy markets, or a quiet temple just off a bustling street. It makes you realize how deeply integrated faith is into daily life there.
And that visibility means there's a real sense of community support around religious practices. People come together for their festivals, which are just explosions of joy and tradition. Think Eid celebrations, or Durga Puja. They're not just religious events, they're massive cultural parties where everyone, regardless of faith, often joins in. It's like the whole country becomes one big family. Wow, I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would agree with me. The hospitality around these times is just incredible.
Massive cultural parties, she says. Sounds like my kind of spiritual gathering, as long as there's good food involved. But, jokes aside, that community aspect is key. You see people helping each other, sharing meals, and really living out their faith in tangible ways. It's a very open expression of belief. Now, speaking of places where traditions intertwine, let's travel all the way across the globe to Guatemala, shall we?
Oh, Guatemala. From the vibrant greens of Bangladesh to the stunning highlands of Central America. Guatemala has a deep, deep Catholic heritage, a legacy from its colonial past, so you'll find incredible cathedrals and churches that are centuries old. But what blows my mind is the fascinating blend with indigenous Mayan spirituality. Ooh. It's not uncommon to see traditional Mayan ceremonies happening near a Catholic church, or people incorporating ancient beliefs into their Christian practices.
A dance of cultures, indeed. I imagine it's less a formal ballet and more a spirited, impromptu street performance where everyone's got their own rhythm. You're right, though. That's to understand how ancient Mayan rituals blend with Catholic saints. It's enough to make my head spin. And speaking of spinning, trying to find a quiet coffee shop to observe all the spiritual energy at Lake Atlant, that's a spiritual journey in itself. But in all seriousness, the freedom to practice diverse faiths.
And that freedom really opens up opportunities for spiritual seekers. You have vibrant Catholic festivals like Holy Week, which are huge, elaborate events full of processions and passion. But then you also have the deep spiritual connection to nature and ancestral beliefs through Mayan shamans and sacred sites. Places like Chichicastenco, for example, are alive with indigenous ceremonies. It's like the very land breathes spirituality.
So I think that we can conquer that. So whether you're seeking divine intervention or just a really good spiritual selfie, both Bangladesh and Guatemala seem to offer a full menu of options. It's less about one being better, and more about what kind of spiritual adventure you're looking for. From the bustling mosques of Dhaka to the ancient Mayan altars of Guatemala, the opportunities are definitely there.
And that's what makes both countries so uniquely rich, wouldn't you say? You can find community, tradition, or even a deeply personal spiritual journey. It's about being open to experiencing it. Remember to like this video on YouTube if you're feeling the spiritual vibes. And if you have any questions about planning your own spiritual quest, check out Jetonfei Eye for more details.
Yeah, if you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. We're always open to new perspectives. And hey, for those of you trying to find enlightenment in a busy market, maybe just stick to a quiet cafe. It's less dramatic, and the coffee's usually better.
Alright, Leo, so we're diving into social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity. It's like asking a chef to perfectly balance all the flavors in a dish, right? Ooh. It's never simple, but when it works, wow.
Yes, balancing flavors. Or perhaps, Mira, it's more like trying to convince a cat to enjoy a bath. It sounds good in theory, but the reality can be quite a splashy mess. Ouch. We're talking about Bangladesh and Guatemala today. Two countries with incredibly rich tapestries of cultures and histories.
Absolutely. Speaking of tapestries, Bangladesh, for instance, has a vibrant mix of different groups, though it's predominantly Bengali. But then you have the indigenous communities in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, and various religious minorities. It's a colorful mosaic. Wow. I'm actually curious about what our listeners living in Bangladesh think about how these different threads weave together daily.
A mosaic, indeed. Or perhaps, Mira, more like a jigsaw puzzle where some pieces are trying to fit into the wrong spots. On one hand, you have their constitutional commitment to secularism and equality, which sounds great. On the other, the challenges faced by the Rohingya refugees are a stark reminder that diversity can sometimes come with immense humanitarian complexities. Ouch. It's one thing to celebrate festivals together, quite another to share resources during a crisis.
That's a really important point, Leo. Wow. It's about moving from just celebrating differences to truly supporting those in need. For instance, in Guatemala, the situation with its indigenous Mayan population is central to any discussion of social equality. They make up a significant portion of the country, yet historically, they've faced systemic discrimination. It's a painful legacy that still impacts things like access to education and healthcare.
Painful legacy. You know, it's like a comedy routine with an ancient punchline that nobody finds funny anymore, but it keeps getting repeated. Ouch. While Guatemala has made some strides in recognizing indigenous languages and customs, which is a step forward. Ooh, the economic disparities and political underrepresentation are still glaring. It's a bit like putting a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling wall.
Well, I choose to see it as recognizing the beautiful, intricate patterns beneath the paint. And efforts are being made. Guatemala's peace accords, for example, aim to address some of these historical injustices, promoting indigenous rights and cultural identity. It's a huge task, but there are dedicated people on the ground trying to make it happen. I want to give a shout out to all the grassroots organizations doing the hard work. You guys are amazing.
Yes, hard work. Often, it's harder than trying to get me to wake up before 9 a.m. without coffee. Speaking of hard work, both countries grapple with gender equality too. In Bangladesh, despite advances in women's education and participation in the garment industry, traditional societal norms can still limit opportunities for women. It's a complex dance between modern aspirations and deep-rooted customs.
It really is a dance, but sometimes it feels like to left feet, doesn't it? Oops. But women in Bangladesh are incredibly resilient. Think about the microcredit initiatives that have empowered countless women in rural areas. Wow. And in Guatemala, while women's rights organizations are active, indigenous women often face a double burden of discrimination based on both gender and ethnicity. Ouch! It's a reminder that social equality isn't just one problem, it's a whole onion of issues, peel after peel.
An onion of issues. I knew my sarcastic peeling technique would come in handy. What I often observe in both these nations is that social harmony is often better reflected at the community level than in the grand policy statements. You see people from different backgrounds sharing meals, celebrating traditions. It's organic. But then you zoom out, and the systemic inequalities persist. It's like a really good street performer playing to a huge, distracted audience.
That's such a keen observation. Leo. Wow. It's true sometimes the official narrative doesn't quite match the everyday warmth. I'm certain that our listeners living in these countries would agree with me, or at least share their own daily experiences. If you think this is wrong, or you have a different perspective, please let us know in the comments section below on YouTube.
And please, keep it family friendly. My sense of humor can only stretch so far. When we talk about legal protections for minorities, it's one thing to have laws on the books and another to enforce them effectively. In both Bangladesh and Guatemala, legal frameworks exist to protect minorities, but challenges like corruption, judicial delays, or a lack of awareness can hinder their implementation. It's like having a map, but the roads are all under construction.
Ah, the never-ending construction of progress. But it's about the journey, right, too. And the dedication of people trying to pave those roads. Whether it's advocating for the rights of ethnic minorities or fighting for better conditions for marginalized communities. There's always someone pushing forward. That's the part that gives me hope. Well, it's like my inner child at 18 telling me, Mira, we can fix anything intentions.
Glitter and good intentions. That's a brave strategy, Mira. But you're right. Seeing the local efforts, the resilience, that's where the real story is. From the indigenous women's collectives in Guatemala striving for recognition, to the NGOs in Bangladesh working to integrate displaced populations, there's incredible human spirit at play. It's truly inspiring. Wow. You know, sometimes it even makes me want to put down my coffee and actually do something.
Oh, now that's progress. And for anyone interested in the nitty-gritty details of societal structures or how these initiatives are funded, don't forget we've got more information over on Jet of AI. Ah, fantastic supporter. It's where you can dive deeper into these complex topics.
Yes, Jet off AI, where the information is as meticulously organized as my coffee brewing ritual. Wow, much unlike my packing habits. So for social equality, respect for minorities, and diversity, both Bangladesh and Guatemala are ongoing sagas. Neither is perfect, but both are constantly evolving, facing their challenges head-on. It's a bumpy ride, but definitely an enlightening one.
Absolutely. It's a journey of learning for everyone involved. And it reminds us that true diversity isn't just about tolerating differences, it's about celebrating and integrating them until everyone feels like they truly belong. Ooh, it's a big, beautiful, messy world, and every piece of the puzzle matters. Oh, alright. Let's look at a topic that usually puts people to sleep faster than a lullaby, but we're going to make it fun, promise. We're talking about taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants in Bangladesh and Guatemala. I know. Not exactly the stuff of wild dreams, but stick with us.
Mira, you're the only person who can make taxation sound like a dance-off challenge. Uh, my brain already hurts thinking about forms. But seriously, this is crucial for anyone dreaming of moving or investing in a new country. When it comes to Bangladesh, for instance, we're looking at a tax system that's, well, let's just say it's got its own unique rhythm. Income tax is progressive, and there's VAT on goods and services just like many places. For immigrants, understanding the nuances of their National Board of Revenue is...
Exactly. It's like a complex choreography, isn't it? But remember, every step counts. For immigrants in Bangladesh, if you're officially employed or running a business, you're expected to contribute. Oh. And a big part of their social safety net, especially for workers, comes from the employee's provident fund. It's their way of building up a little nest egg for retirement. Speaking of that, I'm certain that our listeners living in Bangladesh would agree with me navigating. Bizarre.
A spice bizarre of bureaucracy. I love that, Mira. You know, I once tried to file my own axes. It felt less like a spice bazaar and more like a wrestling match with an octopus. Oops. Anyway, let's glide over to Guatemala, which offers a different flavor of complexity. Wow, their tax system includes income tax, their tax system includes income tax, a value-added tax IVA and other specific duties. For immigrant-specific duties. For immigrants, becoming taxed on your worldwide income, which is a bit of a curveball for some.
Whoa, worldwide income. That's a big embrace from the taxman, isn't it? It makes you really think about where you're earning your money, doesn't it? In Guatemala, particularly for those in the informal economy, accessing those social rights and retirement benefits through the IGSS can be a real uphill climb. It's a system designed more for formal employment, which isn't always the reality for everyone who moves there. I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Does formal employment always make things easier? Or is there a trickier side to it?
A trickier side, indeed. It's like trying to get a perfect coffee without spilling a single drop seems simple, but then, oops. For Bangladesh, retirement age and contribution periods matter significantly for pension eligibility. It often requires a long-term commitment to formal employment. And the social rights, well, access to public health care and education can vary greatly depending on location and available resources. It's not a uniform experience across the entire country.
That's a critical point, Leo. It's not just about what's on paper, but how it translates into daily life. From what I've heard, Bangladesh's legal framework for long-term immigrants, especially regarding property rights and inheritance, has its own set of cultural and legal interpretations, but need careful navigation. It's a maze, but a beautiful, rich maze. For those of you planning big life changes, remember that Jesofe, Baya is a great place to start researching these kinds of intricate details.
You said it, Mira. Beautiful, rich, and potentially head-scratching. And in Guatemala, while the IGSS provides some coverage, many immigrants, especially from other Central American countries, often rely on remittances from abroad or community-based support networks rather than formal state provisions. It's a testament to human resilience and community spirit, which is amazing, but it also highlights gaps in the official system. Well, it's almost like they're saying, if you can't join us.
I love that. It sounds like an adventure novel. And honestly, it often is. When we talk about social rights, we're not just talking about healthcare and pensions, are we? We're talking about access to education for children, public services, even basic legal protections. In both Bangladesh and Guatemala, while the laws might exist, the practical implementation for every long-term immigrant can be a challenge. It's a journey of advocacy and adapting, a constant juga ad in Bangladesh or ship an ingenuity in Guatemala, if you will.
Jugad and Shapan ingenuity. I'll add those to my joke arsenal. Oh, but seriously, if you're thinking of making a long-term move, say, to retire in either of these places, digging into the specifics of double taxation agreements is crucial. You don't want to pay taxes twice just because you forgot to check a box. Whoa, I can just picture the tax authorities in both countries looking at each other like... Double the fun forget to like into channel for more deep dives into these fasten.
Double the fun indeed. Ultimately, for long-term immigrants in Bangladesh and Guatemala, navigating taxation, retirement, and social rights isn't just about reading a rulebook. It's about understanding the practical realities, cultural nuances, and often finding local expert advice. It's an investment, not just of money, but of patience and adaptability. Our current topic, the rate of meeting specific interests, is all about finding your tribe and feeding your passions, whether you're into something niche or something widely loved. And I think Bangladesh offers some fascinating avenues for that. Wow, I've been reading up, and their passion for cricket is something else. It's not just a sport, it's practically a national identity. Imagine a whole country united by a game. Ooh.
A national identity built around hitting a ball with a stick. I've seen bigger tribal gatherings for a free coffee sample. But seriously, Bangladesh does have a vibrant cultural scene beyond the pitch. I hear there's a serious devotion to traditional folk music. People don't just listen, they often gather in small circles, perhaps with a harmonium, and just sing. That's a different kind of interest group. Oh!
Absolutely. And speaking of traditional arts, the rickshaw art in Dhaka is an explosion of color and storytelling on wheels. Every rickshaw is a moving canvas, depicting scenes from daily life, myths, or even movie posters. It's like an outdoor gallery that comes to you. Well, I'm actually curious about what our listeners think about this. Have any of you ever seen rickshaw art up close? If you think this is wrong, please let us know in the comments. I'd love to commission one just from my living room.
I can picture it, your living room looking like a perpetual traffic jam. But that's a sharp observation, Mira. It's true that street art is a uniquely Bangladeshi interest. Now, let's look at another corner of the world. Guatemala's specific interests might not be as in your face, but they are deeply rooted in heritage. Think about their traditional weaving. It's not just a craft, it's an ancestral language. Wow. Every pattern, every color tells a story of a village or family.
It's like wearable history. Ooh, and given their stunning landscapes, I imagine there are big interest groups around hiking volcanoes and exploring ancient Mayan ruins. Can you imagine joining a dawn trek up a volcano just to see the sunrise over a cloud-filled valley? That's my kind of adventure. Well, I'd probably be out of breath, but still smiling.
You'd be making jokes about how many steps it takes to reach enlightenment. But your right, outdoor pursuits are huge there. And let's not forget coffee. And there's a whole culture around it. From discerning connoisseurs who can pinpoint a bean's origin just by sniffing it, to farmers' cooperatives focused on sustainable growing. It's a profound interest.
Oh, I was just about to ask that. Does that mean there are coffee snob clubs everywhere? Because I'd definitely join a group that meets just to discuss the perfect brew. On a more serious note, both countries clearly offer distinct ways to engage with culture and hobbies. Whether it's the buzzing rickshaw art in Bangladesh or the intricate weaving in Guatemala, it's about communities forming around shared passions. Ooh.
Exactly. And it's not just about what you can do there, but what you can learn. In Bangladesh, you might find deep dive classes into Bengali calligraphy or cooking workshops for unique regional dishes. In Guatemala, it could be immersion courses in Kakyusi Haikel or Kicihi, Mayan languages, or perhaps workshops on traditional instrument making. It goes beyond tourism, it's about truly connecting.
It's all about that human connection, isn't it? Wow. You know, sometimes I think we find our best selves when we dive headfirst into something new. And these countries certainly give you ample opportunity for that. If you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments what niche interests you to explore in Bangladesh or Guatemala. We read every single one.
And don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the Jet Off AI YouTube channel. It helps us bring you more of these lively comparisons. Hit that bell icon to catch our videos the moment they drop and be among the first to listen. We'd love for you to share your thoughts, comments, and critiques below. Reading and responding to them truly brightens our day. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more. So until then, take care and see you in the next one. Warmest wishes from us.